Let's get it, 580 Sports Talk on a hump day afternoon. Hope you're having an outstanding Wednesday, and we appreciate you dialing into 580 Sports Talk on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and our video stream on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and on Facebook at WIBW News. Got the power trio for you today. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski in studio. Summer intern Trenton Craxner across the glass, our producer-engineer. Spencer Dupuis is on vacation. He'll be back next week. We have got a jam-packed 4 hours of sports talk for you today. Lots of Royals and Chiefs to get to. We will take you all the way to 6 o'clock, and then we'll have you until 6:30 for overtime, leading into Royals baseball, the rubber game of their three-game set with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Pre-game coverage in the Royals Baseball Network at 6:30. The first pitch at 7:10. Michael Wacha, Ryan Nelson, the starting pitching matchup as the Royals try to bounce back from a 6-2 loss last night. We'll talk plenty about that game and what the lineup construction revealed about what the Royals ought to be looking at the deadline, at least in my opinion. And are we worried about Alec Marsh after he gave up 5 runs in his 5 innings of work last night? I maybe have a different answer than you. So we'll talk about what we saw last night from the boys in blue. Again, 6-2 losers to the D-backs.
Trenton, would you like to share the word you used with me earlier to describe that game last night?
Poopy?
Yes. Precisely.
I am, as the parent of a newborn, far too intimately familiar with poopy right now to use that as a descriptor for as many things as maybe I used to. But no, that was the old cliche where you win 54 and you lose 54, and it's the 54 in the middle that determine what kind of year you have. That was one of the 54 that you just lose. That was one of those.
I mean, they were hitting home runs off the foul pole. Lourdes Gurriel's running out 106 mile per hour double play balls, and then the Royals don't get a hit for 7 innings, and they're hitting line drives at people. It's,
Yeah, it was a lot of contact. Royals weren't swinging and missing a bunch last night. But a lot of Adam balls last night. Just one of those nights for the Royals. We'll talk about it. Also, an interesting name connected to the Royals by way of trade rumor mongering by David Schoenfeld of ESPN. It's a former Royal, though not for very long. He'd certainly help the lineup, but would he help the team? We'll discuss the fit of this particular player a little bit later on this hour. Lots of Chiefs today as well. News and notes from today at camp. Couple of injuries of note today, although, of course, no word yet on severity, but a couple of guys who project to be contributors to this year's Chiefs team had to leave on the front of the card. You always want to hear that they're leaving in the front seat of the card and not the back seat or the back of the card. If that's happening, that's usually not good news. But if they're riding in the front, maybe they just want to ride. So we'll talk about those injuries, more offensive line rotation notes, a couple of guys getting increased opportunities who were on the practice squad last year. Did they have real opportunities to make this year's 53-man roster? We'll discuss that. We'll also hear from a pair of Chiefs players, Hollywood Brown and Joshua Williams, each spoke to the media today. And Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator, also spoke to the press. Plenty of interesting stuff from Nagy's presser. We'll air that at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour. We'll air Hollywood and Joshua Williams at the bottom of this here 2 o'clock hour on the show. Also on the program today, ESPN released their list of the top 25 NFL players of the century. Where does Patrick Mahomes rank? What other Chiefs players are on the list? Do Brendan and I have beef with the list in any form or fashion? I'm sure we'll find something to gripe about.
Yeah, you're right about that.
That's top of the 4 o'clock hour. Bottom of the 4 o'clock hour, Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com will join us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Catch up with Fitz, latest on Kansas State athletics in our weekly visit with him. Plus, all the things you've come to know and love from a Tuesday or Wednesday edition of the program. I'm a day behind. A Wednesday edition of the program. We'll play a round of One Gotta Go. We've got 2 new What Is Wrong With You stories dialed up, sports headlines, top of the 5 o'clock hour, all that good stuff on today's program. You are, as always, invited and encouraged to contribute to the show, and there are 2 ways you can do that. Number 1 is the Top City Metal Supply text line. You can send us a text at 785-272-9429. That's 785-272-9429 to the text line. You can also participate in the YouTube live chat. We love our YouTube live chatters. We love them so much. When you're watching the show live on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk, jump into the live chat, interact with other listeners, interact with us throughout the show. It's a great way to be more connected to the program. And by the way, if you are watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet, you should definitely do that. Click that subscribe button. You'll be notified when we go live every day. You'll be notified if we have any other live programming on the YouTube channel. You can watch all the live and archive stuff that we've done over getting close to 2 years of the YouTube channel, aren't we? Halloween of 22.
Yeah. That's right.
So, we're about 3 months shy of 2 full years of YouTube content. That's a lot of stuff on the YouTube channel that you can check out. So subscribe today. Again, that's 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. I was reading Levi Weaver's article at The Athletic yesterday regarding Major League Baseball trade deadline possibilities, players that might be on the market, starting pitchers, relief pitchers, right-handed bats, left-handed bats. And for all of those genres of player, for lack of a better way to put it, Weaver had graded or tiered the teams that appear to be buyers into 4 different categories. And the categories were desperate, need one, if it's a fit, sure, and nah. Those would be the 4 tiers of need for these particular things. And I found it interesting in reading it that the Royals only fit into the if it's a fit, sure column for right-handed bats. And some of the ones mentioned in the column included Brent Rooker of the A's, Randy Arozarena of the Rays, and Bo Bichette of the Jays. But for left-handed hitters, the Royals were under the desperate for left-handed bats column. And some of the names mentioned there, we've talked about Jazz Chisholm. We mentioned Ryan McMahon a little bit, a third baseman of the Rockies. Michael Conforto, veteran left fielder, currently with the Giants, also popped up on that list. And I don't agree with that assumption that the Royals need a left-handed bat more than they need a right-handed bat. And I think that the evidence for that was in the lineup last night. Because when you're rolling out a lineup to start a game and Garrett Hampson is batting leadoff and Nick Lofton is in the lineup and Dairon Blanco is in the lineup, I don't think you're setting yourself up to succeed. I don't think you're setting yourself up for a particularly explosive offensive performance if you've got those guys in the lineup. And that seems to be status quo now against left-handers. If you're going to sit Michael Massey and Kyle Isbell against the best lefties, and the numbers say you should definitely do that for Isbell, at least. He's 125 points of on-base plus slug, OPS, worse against lefties, same-hand pitchers, than he is against righties. So, okay, he doesn't hit lefties, fine. Sit him against lefties. Michael Massey actually has a reverse platoon split. He's hitting lefties better this year.
Yep.
It's a small sample size, but he is performing better against lefties this year than he is against righties. But if those guys are going to be an auto sit against tough lefties, then I think you have to have more playable options than Hampson, Blanco, and Lofton. And because I don't think any of those guys hit so well against left-handed pitching that it justifies not upgrading. I don't think you're getting so much value offensively, added value on the short side of a platoon from those batters to justify not going out and adding to your offense. And while the team's splits against lefties and righties aren't super uneven, they're actually pretty close together. The Royals have a team OPS of 719 against right-handed pitching. It's 706 against left-handed pitching. So it's pretty even, right? It's not a huge fall off against left-handed pitching. And some of that is your best hitters are right-handed. Bobby Witt Jr., right-handed. Salvador Perez, right-handed, and has always wrecked left-handed pitching. Freddie Fermin's a right-hander, and he's been one of your best hitters. Hunter Renfroe's a right-hander, and he's been one of your best hitters since the calendar flipped from April to May. So some of that is that. But for me, I looked at that lineup card last night, even against a struggling left-hander like Jordan Montgomery, I felt like this doesn't feel like a winning lineup to me. This feels like a lineup that's a right-handed bat short of feeling really good about where you're at.
You know, Nick Lofton going into last night was 3 for his last 32 at the plate.
Yeah, that's not a guy. That's not a platoon.
But he is 10 for 35 against lefties, hitting 290 this year, despite hitting 190 overall. So I can understand that he has hit the ball well against left-handed pitching this year.
Well is relative. He's got his 1 home run against right-handers. He's got a better on-base percentage. It's still only about a 40-odd plate appearance sample.
Yeah, it's 10 for 35 against lefties and 16 for 98 against righties this year.
If I'm going to have a guy on my roster who's a short side platoon guy, I want him to crush lefties. I want him to dominate lefties.
Yeah, there's not enough there to outweigh the negative, right? Like, it's a similar thing we've talked about with like a Velasquez before, that, hey, if you're not going to make a lot of contact, if you're not going to get on base a whole lot, you better be crushing the ball when you do make contact. And he has not done that this season, and that is why he is currently in Omaha instead of with the big club in Kansas City. Similar thing there with Lofton. Like, hey, you've got obvious deficiencies. What you're good at, you better be great at. And if you're not, it's going to be harder to find a spot for you right now. So I can totally understand where you're coming from with that. And I understand what you mean here, too, about looking for a right-handed batter. I'm almost in the camp, and I don't mean to reduce this too far. I'm almost in the camp where I am not going to be picky about the kind of bat you go out and add. Like, if the best bat you can go add is a lefty, I'm not really opposed to just saying okay and adding whoever the best available bat is. And granted, it's relative to the caliber of player. Like, if you're talking again about a platoon guy who has one very specific trait that he's good at, and that's hitting lefties, versus a left-handed batter who is, a stellar overall player. I don't know who that would be, but just as an example, a hypothetical, I'm going to take the better overall player, and I'm just going to say we'll live with the lefty problem. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So I think it depends on the situation. I think it depends on who's available. But that being said, you do want to have a roster. You want to have enough flexibility on your roster. What do the Royals have right now? 14 guys who are position players?
It might be 13 and 13.
Maybe 13?
Let me double check. Yeah, with the 26-man roster, most teams have gone 13 and 13. Royals have 8 active relievers: MacArthur, Stratton, Schreiber, Zerpa, Smith, Long, Bubich, and Harvey. So yeah, it's 13 and 13.
Okay, so you've got 13 guys. You want to have enough flexibility with that group to be able to match up against different guys, because, I mean, obviously no duh, but think about it from a postseason context, right? When you can rest guys differently, when you can go to a 4-man rotation. In certain situations, we've seen it before against the Royals. You might go to a 3-man rotation. You can be more selective about when guys are pitching, when you're using guys, the matchups you use out of the bullpen. You've got to have enough flexibility. And I think we felt, even ignoring the lefty-righty splits yesterday, I think we sort of went into that game feeling like this is not the most anxiety-settling offense we've ever seen put together by Matt Quattrero. Like, I think it's fair to say all of us went into yesterday thinking, not great.
When you're starting a guy that has over 5 ERA since May 11th and it starts, you better be putting out on offense out there that can put up runs, because you're going to need to win a high-scoring game.
And yesterday, I think it's fair to say it wasn't that. And I don't want to react too strongly to that. I don't want to go too far into prisoner of the moment territory, but I do think it leaves you wondering what you need to focus on, what you need to be intentional about adding to get this team where you want it to go. And the reason that being intentional is more important, more so than just the market factors, more so than just what's available out there, you only have so many assets to give up to go get someone better. Your farm system is weak, and you're not moving Mitchell at this point. You're not moving Caglione, because that's about all you got that's anywhere close to top prospect kind of material. You've already given up Wallace, which I'm not opposed to that move, even in retrospect at this point, even if Harvey has not been off to an incredible start so far with the Royals. You only have so much you can give up. You only have so many assets that other teams actually want. So you've got to be very careful, and you kind of have to walk a fine line of finding need. We talk about this with the draft all the time, right? The NFL draft, right? Uh-huh. Are you going best player available, or are you drafting for need? I think it's very similar here for the Royals. You might only get one shot at it to add a decent, actual playable bat, whether it's a platoon guy, whether it's a starter. So you do have to be very specific and very intentional about why you want to target a specific guy over someone else.
Here's the other thing about the platoon bats that the Royals have right now, which, again, that's Hampson. We'll put Hampson, Blanco, and Lofton in that pile. Those are your short side guys. A lot of the playing time they're getting is against left-handed pitching.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the slugging percentages for those guys. You ready for this?
Yes.
Garrett Hampson is slugging 346.
Bad.
10 doubles and a triple. Dairon Blanco is slugging 299. 3 doubles and a homer.
That's not good for the brand. That is not good for the pro Dairon Blanco brand.
He looks like Hank Aaron next to Nick Lofton and his 248 slugging percentage. So if you're going to play all these guys, man, you got to hit a lot of singles. You got to have a lot of balls with eyes, because when you don't have a lot of balls with eyes, you don't have anybody who hit the ball over the fence or into the gap. You know what happens? You get shut out or not shut out, but you get stifled for 8 innings by Jordan Montgomery and the parade of guys coming out of the Arizona bullpen.
And talking about flexibility with your lineups, I think Dairon Blanco, and I mean this seriously, I think that's a useful player.
I think he's a fine 5th outfielder because he has a plus skill that he brings to your bench, and that is his speed. That can change games in the late innings. The Royals, if any franchise knows it, know that you can change a game with some fresh wheels off the bench in the 8th or the 9th, especially when your 3 and your 4-hole guys run like me.
And he can make contact. There is something that I would say that skill is like a 45 on a 20/80 scale, like his contact ability. But you don't want to rely on a piece like that. You want that to be in addition. You want that to be an expansion pack on your base set here. You don't want that to be the base. You're going to be in a tough spot. So you want to add players that mean Blanco can become a specialized player, as opposed to we may need him to play an entire 9 innings and be a factor.
I know we're not talking about him because he's a left-handed bat, but we're going to throw him in with these guys. You want to know what Adam Frazier's slugging this year?
It ain't much better than the guys we just talked about.
289.
Well, it's better
worse
than
than Dairon Blanco.
So, yeah, and that's the guy that had hitting leadoff for like 8 games in a row.
There are only 5 guys on the Royals active roster with slugging percentages over 400. And that's, I mean, you know them all off the top of your head. Witt, Pasquantino, Perez, Massey, and Fermin's the other one. And he's slugging 410. He's not exactly like prime George Brett when it comes to slugging percentage here. So the Royals are already not a team built to hit a bunch of home runs. Like they're 10th in the American League in home runs. But the more guys you play that don't have any thump, the harder it gets for you to score runs. And I don't know about making it a real steep uphill climb against every left-hander you face down the stretch.
And you just have 4 or 5 guys on the bench that are just maybe going to hit a single for you every once in a while with their 300, maybe 300 slugging percentage.
The move you're making if you're the Royals at the deadline is a floor-raising move. On the spectrum of floor raiser or ceiling raiser, you're adding a floor raiser, I think, because of your limitations of who you can add. Like, you're not going to go out and add, I don't know, give me a name, Pete Alonso. Like, that's a ceiling raiser kind of move because of the power, because of the potential he's got. I know that would drive Trenton insane, but like that would be a ceiling raising move you could make here at the deadline. I'm sure he's not going to be on the move, but you know what I mean. The floor raising move we're talking about is competent bat that can hit lefties at a league average clip and bat 7th for you.
I just take,
like, that's what we're talking about.
I just take somebody off the bench who get the ball over the fence. If you combined the 5-headed Royals bench and combine them to form Voltron, like the 5 guys who have been the bench players for the better part of this season, that's Frazier, Fermin, Hampson, Blanco, and Lofton. If you combine those guys, do you know where they would rank on the Royals in home runs if they were one person?
Last.
Not quite. They would be tied for 5th. Those 5 guys have as many home runs as Hunter Renfroe. Those 5 guys have one more home run than Michael Massey, who has played 47 games. Those guys have one more home run combined than Nelson Velasquez, who got demoted and isn't real close to coming back up.
I talked about this after the first round of the draft when Caglione was the pick, that I believe the Royals are trying to steer more in that direction with some of their key players. That they want more guys who have pop.
You have to. Those are the terms on which the game is played in 2024. It is a power game. Yes. It is power on the mound. It is power at the plate.
Agreed.
Sorry, go on.
No, real quick. The problem, though, is that, and this is the tightrope act that we have talked about all season with this Royals team. And now the fact that we're into the back portion of July, we're almost to the deadline. We're beyond the All-Star break. Now you are in we're making a push for the playoff mode. You don't need to do the balancing act of, well, development versus trying to contend. No, you're pushing for the playoffs here if you're the Royals, which good. No problem with that. But that is why we talked about it being this balancing act for so much of the first half of the season, because you're still dealing with a roster that a year ago won 56 games.
And you've turned over a lot of it. Like, this isn't really a roster that fully resembles that. You had to turn over so much of it, but you're still at a point where
you're building from a place of major weakness.
Right.
You are trying to dig out of a hole. You're trying to dig out of this giant. Okay. The Dark Knight Rises. Okay. Remember when Batman, when Christian Bale is trying to get out of the pit that Bane locked him in, and he's training and he's getting all, putting all this work in to fix his body after all this. He's trying to climb out of the pit. And everyone's like, there's no way he's going to do this, but they're cheering him on anyway. There's a couple of different parts of that scene where he gets part way up the wall before being knocked back down. It's like, wow, he's put in all this work. He has rehabilitated himself in this pit, working on himself alone to climb out. Wow, he got halfway up. Well, you know what halfway up out of that pit was? Still stuck in the pit. Like, that is what you were building from if you're the Royals. I'm not saying that the whole roster sucks. Not what I'm saying here. But you were at the bottom of the pit. You were bleeding. You had your abdomen all beaten up by Bane. That's what you were for the last 6 years. You're still trying to get out of that. You're getting close. You are closer to that. But I think this entire discussion is an example that you've still got those weaknesses that you haven't completely overcome yet.
They're playing a game of musical chairs at the DH position. I know we're about to talk about this guy, so I'm not going to reveal his name in the next segment. But you know what he's hitting against lefties this year? 265 with 7 home runs and a 632 slug. The guy that we're going to talk about in just a moment.
If you added the slugging percentages of Blanco, Hampson, and Lofton, I don't think you'd get there.
So
You would,
because then you could solidify your DH spot, that instead of having Adam Frazier and his Mendoza line batting average and 230 on base percentage,
I always feel like
you could have this guy do it.
I always feel like when you DH Adam Frazier, you should put hitter in quotations. Designated hitter. Because
they're rotating. Pasquantino, I think, was there last night. Perez will probably do it today since he's caught every game out of the break. And then occasionally Massey, but he's been in the field more. So you're putting Frazier or someone there. So this guy that has been a DH this year would be a really good job to solidify your lineup and lengthen it for you.
We're going to reveal which guy that our pal Trenton is talking about, a former Royal suggested as a potential addition at the deadline by one ESPN staffer. We will get to that on the other side of this timeout as we're just getting started from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. 2:31 on 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Dan, Brendan, Trenton in with you today. Spencer's on vacation. Coming up in a little bit, we're going to hear some Chiefs training camp audio. Hollywood Brown and Joshua Williams spoke to the media earlier today. We'll hear from them, and offensive coordinator Matt Nagy as well later on in the show. From the Top City Mail Supply text line from the 785, a Jorge Soler type addition would be great for the Royals this year. Obviously, you don't expect them to be the World Series MVP, but there's no doubt they need some power in the bottom of the lineup. David Schoenfeld of ESPN.com agrees with you and, by extension, us, and wrote this today, this suggestion that the Royals go and acquire an ex-Royal, Brent Rooker, from the Oakland A's, who, of course, the Royals had and then let go after 2022 because he wasn't good. Like, I know we can, like, kill teams for giving up on guys too soon or whatever it is, but sometimes you got to look at, like, what they produced while wearing the uniform, and you have to determine that, yeah, anybody would have made the same decision. 30 out of 30 teams would have DFA'd Brent Rooker after the numbers he put up in 2022. 30 out of 30. Mm-hmm. I can't blame Dayton Moore for this one. Then last year, Rooker was an all-star, and this year he's been even better. He's 8th in the majors in OPS. He's hitting .291, a .370 on base, a .578 slug, and has 23 home runs. And the A's are very much open for business. They're moving next year. You may have heard they would prefer not to pay their players anything. They're going to owe Rooker some money in arbitration next year. And the suggestion from Schoenfeld says the Royals do have Salvador Perez to DH when he's not catching, but they can play Rooker on a corner on those days and live with his glove. It's not like Hunter Renfroe and MJ Melendez are Gold Glovers anyway, and neither is providing much offense. You could include the Mariners or Rangers as possibilities for Rooker, but the Royals have a lot of good vibes going, and the AL Central has tightened. Get Bobby Witt Jr. some help. This is why I'm not wild about the idea of Rooker. 2 reasons. Number one, like Schoenfeld alludes to it, he's not a great defender. That's an understatement. He's really bad. He's like, they used to make the joke that a bad defender, and I don't know if this is in poor taste now, but they used to make this joke. They said that a poor defender was like Michael Jackson. One glove for no apparent reason. And that's Brent Rooker. On 24 attempts in the field this year, he is -3 outs above average.
It's not great.
It's not what you want. So for a team that I think has been fairly good defensively, though I don't think Rooker's been great, or rather Renfroe for the Royals have been great. Melendez has certainly upgraded his defense in left field this year. I don't know how great a fit he is in the corner, and you have to play him in the corner. Because right now, you've got 3 guys for 3 spots in the order on a given day. Catcher, first base, and DH. And that's Salvi, Vinny, and Freddie Fermin. And Fermin has hit so well that you almost have to play him every day at this point. At the very least, you got to play him 5 out of 6 in a given week. You've got to play Freddie Fermin. He's hit his way into the lineup, I think. So DHing Rooker kind of feels like a non-starter. The other thing is, he might be the best hitter on the market. He's certainly the guy having the best season who is likely to hit the market.
Should have been an all-star.
Yes. And I don't know that the Royals have the prospect capital. As we've talked about over and over again, to make a big move, you've got to have some big chips to be able to push into the middle of the table, and the Royals just don't.
The only exception, well, I think that is going to be more about who else is trying to get him as opposed to what the A's would be willing to accept for him. Because the A's historically, specifically in a recent vintage, not exactly like playing hardball to give guys up. And
this is true.
What did they end up trading Chapman for? It was like nothing at all. Or not Chapman, Olsen.
Matt Olsen?
Matt Olsen, if I remember correctly. Because he was moved before he signed with the Braves, right?
Yes, he was traded. They got Shea Langoliers, who's their everyday catcher.
And he's
Christian Pache.
Christian Pache was a good prospect at one point.
Joey Estes, who started some games this year. I think he threw a complete game. Estes did. I think he threw like a complete game shutout against the Angels earlier this year, and then something called a Ryan Cusick.
Of course, it was against the Angels.
I think it was the Angels. Do you know what Brent Rooker was for the Royals when they got traded? You know what he batted?
It started with a 1.
He was 4 for 32, which is 125. But
better than Nick Lofton.
I mean, yeah.
No, like
recently anyway.
My beef with that is they chose Hunter Dozier. It was either you're non-tendering Hunter Dozier or Brent Rooker, and they chose Hunter Dozier.
Well, they'd already extended him at that point
over Brent Rooker.
They'd already extended Dozier.
Beef.
Well,
he was too expensive.
Because didn't Dozier get his deal after 2019?
Well,
so he was almost at the end of his rope too.
No, Rooker was. It was after 2022 that Rooker was let go.
Right. Well, here's the other. And look, we don't need to
relitigate the Hunter Dozier thing.
I mean, the whole thing was a disaster, and Rooker too. I mean, he was bad. He also only had 29 plate appearances. Like, that's nothing. We thought Michael Garcia was about to change the future of offensive baseball after 29 plate appearances this year. Like, that's not really enough to make a final determination. And whatever he's done in Oakland, whoever has been working with him has obviously gotten something out of him, which is a plus. I do agree it will be hard to get him. But again, I think that's because, New York could just offer more than the Royals could. I don't think the A's are dying for anything in particular. Most teams that are relocating would, because they'd say, you know what? We want to get to Sacramento, Vegas, back to Oakland, whatever, and we want to be able to pop and say, hey, we've got some big names that are going to be here within 3 years, and they're going to be your homegrown guys. John Fisher might not own the A's by the time they have a new permanent home because he is a fraud. They're such a Ponzi scheme.
Do you think John Fisher knows who Brent Rooker is? Do you think if I asked John Fisher right now, who's Brent Rooker? And do you think he'd be able to place his face?
No.
Like if Brent Rooker walked up to him and shook his hand, do you think he would know, oh, you're my designated hitter? That's what I'll say. I'm sure he's heard the name, but I bet if Brent Rooker walked up to John Fisher this afternoon and introduced himself, he would not be able to place the face.
No. I am going to go back in harder on the Brent Rooker decision originally real quick here. Do you know how many plate appearances he had by the time 2022 was done in his career?
It was not many.
270. That's a third of this. Bobby Witt already has nearly 500 this season.
Yes.
So maybe a little rush to judgment there. I do want to bring this up. For what it's worth, I'm all in on going to try to get Brent Rooker. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Love the idea. As long as he doesn't feel so hard done by his time in Kansas City that he would shut down upon arrival. That would be a guy I would make a phone call on.
Absolutely.
And I think that your determination is we've just got to add some offense. That would be if JJ Piccolo has decided, damn the torpedoes, we got to score some runs. We got to back our starting pitchers and we got to score some runs. And if Dairon Blanco is Brent Rooker's glove in the 7th inning of every game, so be it.
Also, he's got team control left. Rooker does.
Yes, he does.
At least a year, if not 2, of team control. So
that would be.
He's ARB eligible. He's got 3 years of team control. Boy, it's going to cost somebody to go get him, even if he only plays one position, and that one position is hitter.
Would you move Mitchell? Let's call him a fringe top 100 prospect. Because MLB Pipeline had him there going into the year. Baseball America does not have him there currently.
I think for a guy with 3 years of team control who's an all-star with the bat, I think I probably would.
I would I wouldn't hesitate.
He's not your number one prospect anymore. You've got it. If there's one organizational strength that the Royals have, it is catcher.
Yes. That is absolutely true.
I could be talked into it.
Right.
If I'm gonna make him the centerpiece, I might see if the A's will throw in a reliever, maybe Lucas Erceg or somebody like that.
We're gonna do show prep on the fly here, live on the radio. Ken Rosenthal from The Athletic, he just posted his daily "What I'm Hearing" column, a staple, a true tradition like any other around the MLB trade deadline. It includes a list of what appears to be more than a dozen or around a dozen bats that are available. Do you want to go through them now, or should we hold off on this?
We can go through them. Go ahead.
All right.
Real quick.
From Tampa, Randy Arozarena, Yandy Diaz, Brandon Lau, Isaac Paredes.
I like Paredes. I like Isaac Paredes a lot. He was an all-star. He hits for power. He's got a year of team control left. He'd slot in at third base. You can move Garcia to second full-time. I like the player. I don't think Arozarena is gettable. I think that somebody's going to play a high price for him. He was terrible to start the year. But he's been much better since.
Has been ticking up.
Yandy Diaz just left the team for personal reasons. I'm not sure what that's all about. So I
probably steer clear of that one.
Pump the brakes on that one for now. Brandon Lau is like Macy's Michael Massey.
Huh.
And Michael Massey is like Coles, Brandon Lau.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
No, I like Coles a lot.
Arozarena, by the way, is now up over a league average OPS plus. That is a huge improvement for him. All right, from the Giants, Michael Conforto, my white whale from a few off seasons ago. Wilmer Flores, Mike Yastrzemski.
Flores is fascinating because you know what he does? Kills lefties.
Yeah.
Has always killed lefties.
DH him?
He is having the worst season of his career, though. So it might be Jover for Wilmer Flores.
From the Angels, there's a few more teams here. From the Angels, a name we've heard a bunch, Taylor Ward.
Yeah.
As well as Luis Rengifo, who we talked about earlier this week.
Yeah, wouldn't hate either of those guys.
From the Orioles, Ryan Mountcastle or Cedric Mullins?
Cedric Mullins rules. Why would they trade Cedric Mullins?
They've
got like a billion outfielders, I know, but why would they trade? I mean, looking at the numbers, Mullins has been pretty bad this year. Mountcastle's been pretty solid. 12 home runs, right-hander. Again, first base, only real position. I don't think he's a fit.
Yeah, Mullins should be buying low because he's way below his average.
But it would sure be fun to watch him play center field at Kauffman Stadium.
I do not disagree with you at all on that. Marlins, Jazz Chisholm, we know about that, and Josh Bell. We've talked about that before. Spencer brought him up, the former Nat. And then speaking of the Nats, Lane Thomas and Jesse Winker. Let's get Jesse Winker to play on 10 teams in 10 years. Let's just keep moving him every single season.
Jesse Winker's having a great year.
Yeah.
Low key. Like, he's stealing some bases. It's only 30. He can handle left field. A left-handed bat doesn't solve that problem. But
no,
but
that goes back to what I was saying earlier, that at a certain point, if you're only going to get one shot at a good bat, I'm willing to take the best one available.
Right.
What does his deal look like?
Winker?
Is he a rental?
1 year, $2 million. Yeah. Pocket change.
Yeah, I mean, David Glass would pay for that.
You could get him for nothing, and it would be an upgrade over MJ Melendez in left field every day.
I would be in favor of a lot of these guys if you could get them, to be honest with you. And again, that's just who Ken Rosendahl is hearing are available according to his industry sources.
We'll take a quick break here on 580 Sports Talk. On the other side, we're going to hear from Hollywood Brown and Joshua Williams from Chiefs training camp earlier today as 580 Sports Talk continues. We'll talk a little bit more Royals later on in the show. Scoreboard watching, some games of interest to the Royals and the playoff chase. Philadelphia and Minnesota are tied at 4 in the 8th. Meanwhile, in Denver, the Rockies have jumped out to a 5-1 lead on the Red Sox in the second inning. So we'll keep an eye on those games. Talk a little bit more Royals later on in the show. Plus, we'll visit the DM Injury Law Royals ticket window. We got some tickets for Friday night. The Cubs in town. Patrick Mahomes bobblehead night. We're going to give away a family 4-pack later on in the show, so be listening for your cue to call. Right now, though, we're going to St. Joe. We're going to hear some Chiefs training camp audio from earlier today. First, let's hear from wide receiver Hollywood Brown, who spoke to the assembled press.
What about the first couple of days in your first camp as a member of the Chiefs?
I like the pace. It's been fun, great competition. So excited to keep going.
How much different is it than what you've experienced in the past?
A lot different. The pace is a lot faster here.
How do you feel approach and getting on the same page with Patrick? Do you guys see things the same way against the looks of it?
I think it started way back in the off season. And a lot of things, it made it a lot easier for me coming to the team, and he had me, on the same page at a lot of things.
And all with the Xavier had that beat catch a couple days ago. You guys got to watch film of everything. What was most impressive to you about that?
Just the ball tracking ability. People don't know how tough it is, to be running and tracking the ball like that. So it was impressive.
Why is it tough?
I mean, just to be running at a top speed, tracking the ball, running sideways, it's just not something easy to do.
Matt Nagy really complimented you on your mental acuity and what you've been able to do playbook-wise. Just how has that process gone for you? Why do you think you've been able to have an edge?
I mean, it's my job. Really just come in and show the guys that if I could come in and I could be on top of things and I just got here, it pushes everyone else, to be better, and it raised the competition in the room.
How has Patrick been behind the scenes and kind of getting you acclimated in that fashion?
Yeah, good. Like I said, he helped me a lot way before I even got here, so I was great.
How do you feel about the wide receiver core that you guys have, the potential that you're seeing right now?
I'm excited. God willing, we all stay healthy and we just keep building, keep pushing each other. I think, the sky's the limit what we could do.
Obviously, you've known Patrick for a while now. So I guess what was it like for him to sort of identify your talent and see what he says and see for yourself how much it lines up with what you can do on offense?
I mean, I got big self-belief in myself. I mean, Pat being one of the best in the game, to recognize what I could bring to the table. I mean, it is what it is. I'm just coming in to help and really compete, try to win the Super Bowl.
That was Hollywood Brown speaking to the media earlier today in St. Joe. Cornerback Joshua Williams also spoke. Here's what he had to say.
These good receivers, Hollywood Brown, I know Xavier Worthy's only here for one day, but how much of a difference between this year and last year with the addition of speed?
I mean, even last year, I thought we had some good guys in there, bringing us good competition, good work, making us better. But especially this year, with the additions of Hollywood, we got X out there, and even a lot of the other guys, Sky out there working, J. Ross, all of these guys, Rashid, they're always giving us work, helping the defense get better and making us all better as a whole, as a unit.
Spagnuolo's been open and just saying, it is an open competition between you, Watson, and Nazi for that cornerback role. How are you approaching that dynamic? I'm
approaching it like I want it. I'm sure they do too. They're great athletes. They're great competitors. They're all professional. And, I'm sure we're all attacking the same way, but 100% I want it. I'm going to do everything I need to do to step into there and continue competing.
How do you feel a sense the offense is pushing the ball downfield with more emphasis this camp than maybe in the last couple of years?
I'm sure, some people may say that. I think we're versatile. We got the job done the last 2 years, and I think we're going to be even better this upcoming year with the additions we made. The offense is always trying to get better and adapt to just how people are playing them with just new people, new plays, and, they're doing a great job so far.
Not necessarily really a philosophical difference. Sort of feels the same, but they're just working hard at it.
Yeah, I'm no philosopher, so, but hey, they're definitely throwing a little deep,
Is there a identify what you want to show?
Most definitely. Consistency. I feel like there's a lot of things I do well on one play, and then, next play, that may go away. Just maybe lack of discipline, lack of focus, whatever that is. I want to be as good as I can every single play, every single snap.
Oh, go ahead.
What was it like last year? Obviously, you were part of a rotation last year. Obviously, Legarius was having a great season, but is there a difference in terms of being in a rotation versus trying, as Pete said, to get that spot, to get more snaps, more opportunity?
Absolutely. I think there's a clear snap count difference. Somebody playing 60 snaps versus 20, that's the difference. It's more demanding, and you have to be more consistent when you're out there. You're out there every snap compared to being out there only in certain packages and rotating. So that's something I'm ready to adjust to, and I'm willing to adjust to.
How different was this offseason, even this camp thing so far, compared to like even last year, as far as just your comfort level or your different approach, and just getting maybe more comfortable with everything?
One thing Coach Spags is always saying is growth comes while you're being uncomfortable. So I might be used to the regimen or routine of being up here at St. Joe, but I'm constantly trying to work on something that I'm not so good at, or something that I know needs to be improved upon. So just all the things that I feel like I could be better at, I'm trying to work at, putting myself in uncomfortable positions, just trying to find that growth area.
What comfortable positions do you put yourself into?
As far as, we press a lot, whether that's, me winning every press rep, that's hard, that's uncomfortable, or, possibly playing off. We don't play off a lot. That's something I'm trying to work on. So just everything, man. There's anything in my game where I know there's room for improvement, I'm trying to improve upon.
What's impressed you the most about Shamari and his ability on the inside there?
Just as young as he is, to be able to come in and play those different roles they put him in, it's very impressive. He's a great player, very sharp, and very disciplined. So, the coach asks a lot of him, and he delivers.
You've got such a young group of guys at corner, and losing Legarius, who was a little bit older, could be kind of that leader and guy that you look up to. Do you kind of see yourself as becoming one of those guys now, especially with you and we've got a lot of you guys that are third-year guys, but you've got a lot of young guys coming in this year too. I mean, you kind of look at yourself as starting to become one of those leaders.
I would love to be that. LJ was a great player. He was an all-pro level player, and I definitely took notes from him. Leadership styles, play style, all of those type of things. That's something I try to just take notes of and little tidbits add to my game. And every day I'm working to, become the best me I can be, but I'm definitely taking tips from how Snead approached it.
Sorry, Josh, you've been able to get to the mountaintop twice and you're having to reset here. How do you approach keeping that hunger to essentially restart all over again?
Just me coming into a opportunity, with LJ leaving, I feel like that's a challenge in itself. So, the first 2 years, was a different role. The opportunity opened up with such a great player like LJ leaving. I'm just doing everything I can to show the coaches that I'm, prepared, and I'm willing to do everything possible to step in there.
Last one right here.
So Dave Barrett is one of the best secondary coaches in the league. He has a great reputation for developing young talent. What makes him so special? Can you share what makes him so successful as a defensive backs coach?
Right. Just, the type of people he's been around. He's very, very demanding of people, but he also gives you that level of, okay, I understand you messed up. Let's work on it. Let's help you get better on this area. So holding every player to a high standard and being able to coach every single different type of player, I think is what makes him, able to coach at the level he does. And, you see it with the people he's put out and will continue to put out.
Interesting stuff there from Joshua Williams, who has a chance at a starting role at corner for the Chiefs this season. A lot more Chiefs to come in the 3 o'clock hour from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk, hour number 2 on this Wednesday. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, Trenton Kraxner in with you this afternoon. Spencer Dupuy's on vacation. He'll be back next week. 3 more hours with you today. They are chock full of goodies for you. We got more Chiefs to talk about this hour. Some news and notes from another day at Missouri Western State University for training camp. We'll hear later on this hour from Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs. Had some interesting things to say about the wide receiver group, the offensive approach for this year, and some comments about Patrick Mahomes. That it's always interesting to hear people talk about Patrick and his continued evolution as a player, as a leader, as somebody who's just trying to basically reinvent the position and reinvent what's possible to do, not just as a quarterback, but as a football organization. So interesting stuff up and down from Matt Nagy.
I love Matt Nagy interviews because it's like he talks a lot for a guy who I don't really know how much power he has. But it's very insightful. I really enjoy listening to him talk. I feel like he puts a lot of thought into his responses to questions, but it's like, yeah, Matt, that's nice.
He's a good talker. He's the anti Deshaun Foster. If you have not seen it, Deshaun Foster, the new head coach at UCLA, at Big 12 Media Day today, or Big 10 Media Day today, with an opening statement to be forgotten. It was one of the most awkward things I've ever seen at a media days, and I sat through Les Miles' introductory press conference at Big 12 Media Day a few years back, and at least Les talked.
Yeah.
At least he had something prepared to say. Deshaun Foster clearly didn't do the reading.
No.
Yeah, you ever have that? You got to present in class, you didn't do the reading?
Yes, but everybody's got a different skill set, right? Like, I was good at doing that because I could, be extemporaneous, or I'm really good at trivia, so I could pull random things and make extremely vague connections.
I was also really good at that, and so it's no surprise we're where we are.
Right.
This is the line of work we've chosen.
So if I was in Deshaun Foster's spot today, I would have started pulling vague references to the Notre Dame box offense and say, hey, first year in the league, huh? Maybe we'll surprise you. What do you guys know about all sorts of coaching schemes from the 30s. Maybe we're going to pull out short punt. We'll see how it goes.
I would have just stood up there and done some guy remembering. I would have stood up there. We're a proud program with great tradition, with great players like Jackie Robinson, Troy Aikman.
I would have just started
Cade McNown
pontificating about
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the football one.
I would have been. Let me tell you all about Kenny Washington. Y'all forget about Kenny Washington. Broke the color barrier. Kenny Washington kicked ass. And I would just start going on. That is a skill I have that I am good at. Deshaun Foster, not seemingly great at that. Counterpoint, though, I didn't understand science when I was in school. When I took physics, I had to take the lowest level I could possibly take in order to still pass my junior year. And I still went in every day feeling like I was reading Swahili. I couldn't do it. Maybe he is really good at science.
I'm well aware that Deshaun Foster has a skill set that I don't. For example, he rushed for 3,570 yards in the National Football League over 6 seasons as a Panther and a 49er. I could not do that.
That makes me think of, and not that he is connected to this other running back whatsoever, but that does make me think of a line from one of Dave Chappelle's more recent Netflix specials. Not the stuff that's gotten him in trouble, the funny stuff. Where he's talking about the 4 times he met O.J. Simpson.
Yes.
And he shakes his hand at a restaurant, and his agent goes, how could you shake hands with that murderer? And he goes, Sharon, with all due respect, that murderer ran for over 11,000 yards. And so wildly out of pocket, but also his delivery is just perfect. That's what I think of all the time now whenever I remember some guy's running backs edition. Man, he was kind of a bum. Then again, that bum did run for 6,700 yards in the NFL. What have I done?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some people have different skill sets than others. Clearly, extemporaneous speaking, not Deshaun Foster's bag.
Did you know that statistically speaking, according to self-reported studies, more people are afraid of public speaking than dying?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I heard that just a few weeks ago, in fact. And I thought, wow, I'll tell you what, I am a lot more scared of dying than I am of public speaking is whatever. I can go do it.
Yeah,
Do that.
That's no problem.
But yeah, I don't blame him. Not everyone's good at everything.
Matt Nagy, however, is good at a little bit of filibustering, and we're going to hear from Matt Nagy later.
He's probably
on.
got a lot of time in team meetings to just come up with, what am I going to say at the podium this week?
Yeah, how hard are you really thinking when A, Andy Reid is your boss on the offensive side, and B, Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback?
Hey, guys, I have a couple ideas. Yeah, that's great, man. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, hold on to those. Keep them stored up in a place for later.
You keep working on those, okay? We're going to talk about our thing, but you keep working on those.
For the next time you're head coach, buddy.
I was going to ask, do you think he'll get another shot?
It would be wild if he got 2 chances and Eric Bieniemy got none. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Man.
It would just be like one of those like arc of history things that would be very, very hard to explain in retrospect. Actually, it'd be very easy to explain, just like not in a way anyone wants to hear.
Well, the thing is, like, I can understand in an interview setting, I can understand why you would buy into Matt Nagy. I could.
Sure.
Because I think, I know a lot of Bears fans. My dad, I know a lot of Bears fans. His thing got really old really fast in Chicago when they started losing. But I can understand first impressions. Like, okay, I can buy into this. I can see that vision. The problem with comparing him and Bieniemy is I can also absolutely see that with Eric Bieniemy, and guys respond to his coaching. Not everyone, but you're not going to please everybody. With the benefit of hindsight and being able to see tape of the 2023 Washington Commanders, I can understand why not everybody would buy into the scheme that Eric Bieniemy brings to the table. But before that stint, it's hard to argue. Like, lots of guys with fewer qualifications. You know who's less qualified than Eric Bieniemy and is a head coach this year? It's in the same division. Antonio Pierce.
Yeah.
Antonio Pierce's greatest contribution to football coaching is twofold. One, not pissing off Devontae Adams. And two, committing violations at Arizona State that eventually led to the end of the Herm Edwards experiment.
He was the substitute teacher last year in Vegas, and it went really well because sometimes it goes really well for the substitute teacher. And oftentimes when the substitute teacher becomes the real teacher, it doesn't go nearly as well.
I promise we'll get to the Chiefs momentarily here. Who was that substitute for you? Who was, sweet, Mr. or Mrs. whoever is here. Recess.
Man, we did. It wasn't one in particular, but every time we had a substitute in Spanish in middle school, we were either going to watch Selena or the Spanish version of Space Jam. I'm not kidding when I tell you I've seen Selena upwards of 20 times front to back because of substitute teachers in Spanish class. Because that continued into high school. That was just a recurring theme. Oh, we got a sub for Spanish? Cue Jennifer Lopez singing Bitty Bitty Bum Bum.
The foreign language class substitute, that's definitely a champion. For me, growing up taking French classes, it was Les Choristes. It was a movie about like a boarding school for boys where they joined a choir.
That doesn't sound nearly as fun as Selena.
No, it's not. I just remember the big kids bullying the little kids and calling them French insults. That's really all I remember.
Okay.
Mrs. Peth, by the way, was the answer. Mrs. Peth was like a glorified babysitter. It was awesome.
I promise we're going to get to the Chiefs, but I just saw this across my Twitter timeline. Speaking of coach speak, this from the Twitter account of Craig Morgan, who is the Arizona Cardinals beat writer for Finks, PHNX Sports, part of the All City Network.
This is not the same Craig Morgan who recently played at Prairie Band Casino.
No, not the same one. Anyway,
International Harvester.
He was at press availability at Cardinals camp today. Cardinals coach Jonathan Gannon and several members of the staff did a deep dive on the concept of momentum, apparently going back to wars in the 1800s.
Hell yeah.
After all that research, does momentum exist? Gannon, quote, perhaps, I have no idea. so funny. I can't believe it.
Dude, I think I'm all the way in on Jonathan Gannon.
He really is. He really is Kendall Roy as NFL coach.
Like, I really think I might be in on him.
Kendall Roy from Succession. Yes.
Look, man. I remember I said
this big facts though. People have been doing this for years and years talking about sports. Is momentum real? Any baseball person knows that momentum is only as good as your next day's starting pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
But if outside of the sport of baseball, people have been looking for the answer for this for so many years. Is momentum a real thing? And Jonathan Gannon's like, yeah, man, I went back 250 years. I don't know. I got nothing for you.
I got all this data on the French and Indian War. And all I came up with was, I don't know.
Why? The concept of war momentum, is that a thing?
I would think so.
And how would you even measure it?
This is pretty bleak, but like number of casualties.
I mean, I guess.
Like I'm assuming that Russia probably felt, pretty motivated and felt like they had momentum, when the Hitler's expedition into Russia in 1942 didn't go as planned. I imagine that felt like momentum. I was not, on the Eastern Front of that war, but I would imagine that helped. When the Doughboys showed up in 1917, I'm sure that felt like momentum.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Shout out to the Doughboys. Shout out to the people who sang Over There. I don't remember who originally did that song, but everything was so much simpler then.
Yeah.
Just called songs Over There.
Yeah, people used to sing all the time.
Yeah.
It was just the thing people did. Everyone sang all the time. Nobody does that anymore. We're bringing it back.
Every social studies teacher I ever had is like clawing at the door right now to get in here and yell at me.
We're going to do a song. We're going to do a song about Xavier Worthy having strep throat. Because that's where we'll start our Chiefs training camp news and notes discussion today. That is why Xavier Worthy has not been in practice. He has strep.
You're at strep?
Not for a very long time, but yes, it is highly unpleasant.
I think I had it 3 or 4 times as a kid. I always got super weird symptoms with it, though. I once, as a kid, I was like 6 maybe. I was at my best friend's house as a little kid, and we were running around in their living room, and they had a pool table, and I ran right into it, and I got this absolutely gigantic, bulbous welt on my leg, like so big that my mom took me to the ER. I was like, this can't be good. And I go, and they run all sorts of tests on me. They're like, we got to run some more tests. And they do. And they say, well, your leg is just going to bruise and be swollen. It's fine. By the way, you have strep throat.
Wow.
I was like, what? How did I have no symptoms of that? I was like totally fine. But they said, yeah, you have strep.
The hope will be that Worthy can be back on the field by the time the pads come out on Friday. You could see today that this is a group of players that is very ready to start hitting each other. George Karlaftis got the festivities started a little early with a little shot on Kadarius Toney towards the end of one drill that got him a talking to from Travis Kelce. No pushing and shoving, just a lot of gum flapping. But yeah, it looked like a team today on film ready to get to the pads. A couple of injury notes today from camp. Justin Watson was hurt making a catch. He walked off the field under his own power, rode off in the front of the injury cart. Najee Johnson also was getting looked at after practice today. There was nobody who could really confirm what had happened to him, but they were looking at his right leg, which of course is the same leg on which he tore his ACL last year. He also rode off in the front of the cart. Johnson actually got first team reps today at cornerback opposite Trent McDuffie with Shamari Connor in the slot.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first team group of cornerbacks. So today was the day for Najee Johnson to strut his stuff, and hopefully it did not end in further injury, and he's able to return to workouts tomorrow. So other personnel notes from today. The offensive line continues to rotate. After Wanye Morris got all the left tackle reps yesterday, they split them today between Morris and Kingsley Suamataia. Hunter Norzad got to run with the ones at left guard. Lofty role for the 5th round pick out of Penn State. And Lucas Niang got some time in at right tackle with the ones today after working at left guard some with the ones yesterday. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Versatility is going to be really important for offensive linemen, and I wonder if they look at Niang and see, maybe it's not quite right to be a full-time tackle, but maybe he's the guy that can help us at guard and in a pinch play on the outside, and maybe he's lineman number 7 or lineman number 8 on this roster. For a guy who struggled to get a foothold in his NFL career for a variety of reasons. He sat out the COVID year. He had an injury. Maybe this is his ticket towards securing that roster spot.
No, I'm all for it. And you need depth. You need to have offensive line depth. Generally speaking, and we've talked about this before, offensive line depth is not good. There's a reason you're not a starter on the offensive line. But if you can provide something, and positional versatility is something, and a big body is something, if you can provide that, if you're Luke Niang, I'll take it. I'm comfortable with that. I am interested in Norzad's reps. I know they're not even putting pads on yet. It's very early in camp. I am very interested in Hunter Norzad, though, long-term, because I think he is going to start at right guard going forward. I think he is going to be your replacement for Trey Smith starting next year. And I hope we get a look at him a good amount during preseason. And, if he happens to come in during the regular season, that means someone got hurt or suspended, which you obviously don't wish for. But I want to see what he can do right away, because I think he's going to be part of the future of that interior.
I think that the starting guards for you can make a compelling case that the starting guards for the 2025 Chiefs are not the same as the starting guards for the 2024 Chiefs. If they are not able to pay Trey Smith, if Joe Thuney is maybe a cap casualty or decides to call it a career in his mid-30s, he's still playing at such a high level that if he comes back and performs well following the pectoral injury, I don't think the Chiefs will be in a hurry to move on from him or anything like that. But I do think you could make the case that both guard spots long-term are going to be up for grabs. And Norzad fits the profile of guys the Chiefs draft because he's real intelligent. He's got an engineering background academically, graduated from Penn State.
Played a million different spots.
Yeah, he fits the profile.
Yep.
He fits the mold of a Chief draft pick. And certainly of guys on the roster that feel like, hey, long-term, I've got a chance to be a starter. He should certainly feel that way. Two other guys who were practice squad rookies last year, never really cracked the main roster, but spent their entire first years on the practice squad, had interesting days at camp today. Deneric Prince has been the first running back in behind Isaiah Pacheco the last 2 days. Prince was a camp sensation last year, right up until game one. And then we never heard from him again.
Yep.
Like he did not have a good showing in the first preseason game, and that was all for the Deneric Prince hype train. It barely had a chance to leave the station. But again, with a roster spot open at running back, he's got real speed, real ability. We're actually going to hear Matt Nagy talk a little bit about some of the running backs later on in this hour. And we heard Andy Reid talk about Prince specifically yesterday.
I will tell you this. The fantasy football websites popping off about Deneric Prince right now, about the fact that he's getting work ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, everybody loves the idea of the number 2 back for the Chiefs.
Yep.
Everybody loves the idea in your deep 18 team AFC only dynasty league. He might be worth a 20th round pick.
Do you know how many snaps he played last season? How many games he played last season?
Deneric Prince?
Yeah.
0.
2.
Did he get into 2 games?
Yep.
I do not remember.
Special teams only. Did not play an offensive snap.
Yeah, did not play an offensive snap. Nico Remigio is another one. Matt Derrick's been really high on Remigio and thought that he was one of the breakout guys of OTAs. Had a really active day today. Some of that may have been coincidental coming after Justin Watson's injury. Mahomes was throwing to him quite a bit. He made at least one highlight catch, a sliding catch along the sideline, got a knee down. Do we think he's got a shot at the 53, or is he just this year's Amir Smith-Marset? Is he just a guy who's going to put up numbers in the second half of games like he and Chris Oladokun are going to look for a couple of games like the next Montana to Rice, and then Remigio doesn't make the 53 and gets scooped up by somebody else?
It's funny you compare him to Amir Smith-Marset because I totally get it, but I wish they had kept Amir Smith-Marset last year. I mean, that wide receiver room stunk. I wish they would have at least tried him out.
Would he have been better off? Would he have been a better addition than Sky Moore in retrospect? Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We'll get to Sky Moore here in a second. I think there's a chance who's nailed on at wide receiver for you? Who is without question making it to week 1, assuming no suspension? You know who I'm talking about. Who is making it to week 1 on the roster? We're talking about Rashee Rice.
Yes.
Obviously.
Hollywood Brown.
Hollywood.
Xavier Worthy.
Justin Watson.
Provided that the injury today isn't serious. Nobody sounded real concerned, but you never know. So those are the 4 that I think are absolute locks. No question about it. That's where, I mean, McCole, Hardman, Sky Moore is where it starts to get interesting, right?
Okay. So you've got 4, no doubt. Do we know how many the Chiefs kept at the end of the season? How many they had rostered?
I think it was 7, wasn't it?
I think it stayed with 7 because Justin Ross was still on the team.
Justin
Ross.
His hype train might be coming to station.
Yeah, I think that one.
So by
one might be done.
by the end of last year, they would have had Moore, Rice, Hardman, Watson, MVS, Richie James, and Justin Ross. So yeah, they would have had 7 by the end of the year.
Okay, so with 3 spots open, then
and Tony, I guess, but he was inactive, and so
here are the guys. Then, if you're going to keep 7, here are the guys who are realistically battling for those other 3 spots. You've got Tony, Justin Ross, Nico Remigio, Sky Moore, McCole Hardman. That's 5. I'm not going to include Cornell Powell. I cannot believe he's still around. Jaron Hayek, rookie from Villanova. I can't imagine he makes the team. And the only other one is Phillip Brooks, which would be a special teams move more than anything. I have my doubts, but he's also there.
Right. We know they're going to carry at least one return-only guy, it feels like, on offense. Whether that's a running back or a wide receiver. Maybe that's Tony, honestly. Maybe
it could be Tony.
Maybe that's his spot. Maybe that's Louis Rees-Zammett's spot.
That's also, though, what Montreal Washington did last season. So you have anywhere from 5 to 7 guys who are effectively battling for 3 spots in that group.
Are we calling Rees-Zammett a wide receiver or a running back? Where are we putting him?
I put him at running back.
Yeah, I think he's running back, yeah.
Even if, you could project out, because he's got decent size, right? Let me pull him up here. He is standing at, 6'2", 209. He's got size. You could say, shoot, with that kind of speed and athleticism, maybe you could get him at wide receiver. I don't want a guy who's brand new at football trying to learn wide receiver in Andy Reid's offense.
No.
That to me is a surefire way for him to never get on the field.
Keep it simple for old Reese Lightning. Here's the ball. Yeah. Follow that guy.
Every time I'm giving him the ball, I am tossing it underhand to him. That is what I am doing to make it as comfortable as possible for Louis Rees-Zammett. So I think he's running back. I think he's RB3 and your kick return guy. That is what I am assuming his role is going to be.
If he makes the team, I think you're right. Yeah.
So again, that might eliminate one of those possible wide receivers. That might mean Montreal Washington's got to be a practice squad guy. That might mean Kadarius Toney, you better be able to do punts and something else. You're going to have to be able and willing to do multiple things. I don't think Sky Moore is locked on to come back.
No, I don't think there's any assurance that he should have about making this team.
Did you see?
Although it's going to be hard, I think, for a GM to admit that, boy, I really whiffed here and cut a second-round pick 3 years in. Not even 3 years in.
Did you see what Nate Taylor had to say about Tony and Moore?
I did not.
So Nate Taylor of The Athletic, let me go find his tweet from I think it was yesterday. I've got to go find it here momentarily. Someone asked him how Kadarius Toney was looking. A fan asked him that. And now I've got to go find it. Hold on. Momentarily. Paul, carry on for one moment while I look this up.
Okay. Yeah.
We're almost to a commercial break.
Yeah, we are almost to a commercial break. We'll get to it actually on the other side. We're going to play One Gotta Go after this timeout, but we'll get to your note on Moore and Tony as well. We're also going to hear from Matt Nagy later on this hour. This is 580 Sports Talk live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on 580 WIBW.
All right, so I can't find the tweet from Nate Taylor. I'm certain it was from him. But essentially, someone asked, what's going on with Kadarius Toney? And his response was, let me put it this way, he's the head of Sky Moore. Which probably tells you all you need to know about either of those dudes.
Yeah, no kidding. Before we get to one gotta go here, a little breaking news about one of the finest prep athletes in this city's history, Nyjah Kennedy, the National Softball Player of the Year as a sophomore at Stanford, who had previously announced she was entering the transfer portal. She has made her choice just a few minutes ago, announcing via her social media, she's coming to the Big 12. She's going to Lubbock. Texas Tech is the destination for Nyjah Kennedy. And I don't think that's what anybody saw coming, at least from the national softball perspective. I think the guess was that she was going to go to one of the more established, entrenched programs in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I think people treated her going to Oklahoma like it was a fait accompli at one point. But it is Texas Tech for Nyjah Kennedy.
I'm shocked. I'm super happy for her. I'm glad she found somewhere where she is excited and going to go, and she's going to be great. They might win the Big 12 next year because she's that kind of player.
Yeah, anywhere she goes, she's going to be outstanding, and she's going to elevate that program. I don't know much about Texas Tech softball history, but she's going to elevate that program. That program just entered the national conversation in a way that maybe it was not this past year when they went 29-21 and 8-16 in the Big 12.
If I am Adidas, she is everywhere. Everywhere. You can, if you think about a bat and ball sport, you should see a targeted advertisement with Nyjah Kennedy in it. And they should also pay her a lot of money to make sure that happens. That's awesome for Texas Tech. It's awesome for Nyjah.
They also spent a lot of money on a coach. They just hired one of the winningest active head coaches in the country, Jerry Glasgow. He was previously the head coach at the University of Louisiana.
Interesting. That maybe they have found something they want to attack and say, hey, we're going to go be really good at softball. Good for them. I mean, obviously, they just landed the best player in the country. This is not unprecedented in the sense that you would leave a really dang good program for one that maybe has less stature as one of the best players in the country. Jordy Ball, who was the best player for an Oklahoma championship team 2 years ago now, 2 seasons ago when they won the national championship. She was their best player. She transferred to Nebraska. She's from Nebraska. She said, look, I want to go home. God's calling me to go back home and be around my family, and that's what I'm going to do. And she left Oklahoma, left the best program in terms of current run of all time to go and transfer to her hometown team. And whatever the call must have been for Nyjah to go to Texas Tech must have been strong, and they are officially relevant.
Yes.
I think we can say that without question.
Oklahoma washed.
Maybe.
Perhaps. This is a program, Texas Tech, that has never finished higher than third in their conference in the entire history of the program.
Over under.
Want to bet they finish above that in the Big 12 this coming year?
Over under 3 hours before we hear from one of those guys who posts on Twitter like it's LinkedIn about what her NIL deal is. I'm going to give it about 30 minutes.
Yeah, I will be fascinated to hear what it is. I'm sure it will have been substantial in some way, shape, or form. But no, congratulations to Nyjah Kennedy, the former Topeka High star, National Player of the Year. 2 years of eligibility left. She's going to spend them in Lubbock. Here come the tortillas. Texas Tech Red Raider. One got to go. Do you have one today, Brendan?
I do. I want to continue on with the wide receiver discussion here with the Chiefs. All right, I'm going to give you 4 wide receivers. There are 3 open roster spots for wide receivers. We had the 4 that are locked in. I'm going to give you 4 more. One of them cannot make the 53. Your group is Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Justin Ross, Nico Remigio. One of them cannot make the roster. Who's got to go?
Man, I know we dog Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney, but I've seen those gentlemen make plays in NFL football games, and I have not seen Justin Ross do that. I've not seen Nico Remigio do that. I have seen Ross make more plays in NFL games than Nico Remigio. But at this point, is it really going to happen for Justin Ross? I don't know. That's all projection at this point.
If you go back to last offseason and all the hype he was getting, and then into the year, and you sort of read between the lines from people who are pretty tied into the Chiefs, you sort of get the feeling that the Chiefs don't really think all that highly of him, and that there is why aren't we giving Justin Ross a shot? There's a reason. There's always a reason for things like that. That being said, I'm keeping Kadarius Toney. I'm keeping him.
I'm good with keeping him.
I'm using him on punt returns. I'm using him as a jet sweep guy. I'm keeping him. I'm gonna keep Nico Remigio, and I'm gonna keep Justin Ross. I'm gonna say goodbye to Sky Moore. It's just they have tried multiple uses for him. They can't get anything. I don't think he's got a whole lot of focus as a receiver. He doesn't have especially good hands. He's not a great route runner, which is really disappointing because I thought he would be very good at that. Yeah. And I don't think there's a spot for him on this team in terms of what his skill set or lack thereof is. So I would move on from Moore.
Here's my one got to go today. The Olympics technically started today.
Yeah, they did.
There's rugby sevens and there's soccer, a berserk soccer game earlier today. We're going to get to that in headlines a little bit later on. There are 4 demonstration sports in this year's Olympics being held in Paris. You got to get rid of one of them. For good and for always, it can never be in the Olympics again. The other 3 are full-time Olympic sports. The demonstration sports, surfing, skateboarding, sport climbing, breakdancing. One got to go.
So, okay, read through these again. I know it's breakdancing, surfing,
skateboarding, sport climbing, and breaking.
So is sport climbing like simulated rock climbing? Like when you have the little colorful things on the wall that you climb up at the gym? Is that what sport climbing is?
Yes.
Okay.
Essentially.
I am going to say, man, surfing can stay. Surfing can stay. That's fine. That's fun. Where are they surfing in France?
They're not surfing in France. I think they're doing it in like Fiji. Yeah.
That's right. That's in Fiji. That rules. That's like how they're doing softball in Oklahoma City for the LA Olympics.
Right.
Although even farther away. Breakdancing, I saw people breakdance just in the wild when I was in Paris, so that can stay. That feels very French to me. That can stay. I'm dumping sport climbing, man. Skateboarding, whatever, fine. The X Games have been around for forever. That's fine. Sport climbing, come on. That's like an 8-year-old's birthday party. Get that out of the Olympics. Come on. What is that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know if the competitive version of it is done outside, like on like a real rock. If they just do the competitive version on like the rock walls, you go to like the Discovery Zone. And you ever do that? You ever rock climb?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at it.
No, neither am I. I've done it before.
So when I was in 8th grade, everybody had to go on this trip. We called it Outdoor Ed, and it was in Wisconsin near Lake Geneva. So it was a long bus ride up there, and you just did like outdoor team building activities, essentially. And there was a gigantic rock climbing wall. And the team element of it was 3 people went up at the same time, and then each of them had someone holding on to their rope down on the ground to, try to keep them, keep the pulley in function and everything. I let go of the rope.
Oh no.
And I remember forever. Poor Katie Norton-Williams nearly like broke her spine when I had the rope. Thankfully, she was only about 6 feet up. She had just started, so it was okay. But yeah, that lives rent free in my head. Like I nearly let that poor girl die. So I know it's tough. Sorry, Katie.
And on that note, let's take a break. We'll hear from Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy next from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk on this Wednesday afternoon. The Kansas City Chiefs wrapped up practice earlier today up in St. Joe, and afterwards, offensive coordinator Matt Nagy spoke to the media. Here's what he had to say.
Matt, what is it about Patrick that you see that somehow makes him get hungrier the more he achieves? I mean, how does that dynamic work? And are you seeing it here?
Yeah, you always see it with Pat. He's just that's just who he is, number one, so it starts out that way. But I think, he looks at it like every year is a challenge. There's always some type of edge that we and he creates. And I think internally for him, the biggest thing now is being able to be more efficient probably as a unit on offense. Last year we talked about what we went through. As a team, we win the Super Bowl. And I think being able to get through some of the challenges we went through and still win it creates fire and burn for this year to be better on offense and help the team out in general.
How is he demonstrating that?
Just with his leadership, there's a lot of these plays that we've had for a long time. There's some that are newer, some that are old. He doesn't ever let these plays get old. So if it's a play that we've repped maybe 100 times in the past 2 years, he looks at it like it's the first time he's repped that play. And part of that is like learning some of these new pieces that are a part of the puzzle this year and getting the timing down on how they run a specific route. So I think that's kind of the fun, what keeps it new.
We only saw the one day of Worthy, but just in general, from that day, from what you've seen, how are Brown and Worthy maybe going to open up the offense for you this year?
Yeah, you're right with Xavier. Being able to get him out here when we can will be beautiful, rep-wise, timing-wise. And the one day that he was out here, I think it was exciting to see and feel the speed, but also the tracking of the football and some of those downfield throws. The timing element of staying on time with press that we're getting. Our guys are on defense press a lot. So, just those guys understanding angles at top of routes. And then I'd say the biggest thing is tracking. And for the one time that we were together for that day, it was really great to see. And I think that's why we all got so excited, especially with Xavier.
Yeah, we saw Kadarius Toney get some reps at running back last couple of days. Are there any plans to use him more at running back than you did in the past or maybe last season?
It's probably the biggest thing right now with KT is just us being able to use his strengths. He's super talented. He can do a lot of things. So right now is probably the time to experiment and use these reps that we get. So yeah, we'll do some more with him at running back. We did some last year with him. And I think he's a weapon when you use him that way and being able to bounce him around in different spots. And so far, so good.
In the running back room, just how have you seen Lewis come around just from the beginning of the season workouts?
Yeah, he's done a great job. First of all, his attitude's phenomenal. You come from what he does and being so elite at what he does to transfer to a different sport, you got to have the mental strength to understand you're not going to always be perfect. He's been great. What's going to be fun, I think, and the most fun to watch Lewis is when the pads come on to see, hey, you better keep those pads low and keep that head up. Today he had one where his head was down a little bit low, and he saw that and he knew it. We were talking in the stretch at the end of practice, so it'll be fun to watch him.
That deep throw, where the video shows you going nuts. I mean, can you just take me through what was most exciting about seeing that?
Well, yeah, I definitely got too excited for that play. I got to contain my emotions a little bit. But anyway, the throw, the play, the execution, it's exciting because it was really the first time that we've had that type of play with Xavier. You get a guy that wants it so bad. Pat wants it to be able to connect with him. And so when that happens, especially early in the practice, it's a good feeling. Now what I think the biggest challenge was the next day we came out and the defense got after us. So as a unit, we got to be better and make sure that we're consistent. We weren't consistent. We didn't follow that up.
You have the pads coming on and that battle that you've got between Wanye and Kingsley.
Yeah.
Left tackle spot. What have you seen from both of them so far, and what do you want to see when the pads come on?
Yeah, the competition is healthy. They're going to get plenty of reps, and they know it's going to be a focal point for us this year. When the pads come on, you got to be able to physically do your assignment, but also you got to have a little nasty too. I think all these guys understand, and when you're a younger guy like Wanye or Kingsley, sometimes the game goes so fast that you lose some of the element of who you are within the play. But being able to kind of understand what to do in protections, what to do in the run game, match it up with who you are as a player, bring out your strengths, and then compete against each other in a healthy competition because we're going to be watching. And every rep that they get is going to be valuable. So it's going to be fun for all of us to see it happen. They're going to have good days and bad days, but how do you handle putting good days together and rebounding from a bad day?
What stands out about Hollywood so far? This is integration.
You can feel his veteran leadership. This offense right now for him, it's not been too much for him, and we put a lot in. So he's kept his play speed. When he runs routes downfield, being able to track the football with Patrick, but then also not make the same mistake twice. He's really in good mental shape, physical shape, all of that right now. So that's exciting. We're really looking forward to getting him going.
I don't know how long Justin Watson's going to be out. Maybe it won't be long.
Mm-hmm.
He is. You feel good about that group of guys now who may kind of playing a roster spot for you?
I do. I think, like you said, we'll see with Justin where that goes. But Justin's in a great place. He's been really good for us the past several years. And I think now with where he's at, the game has really slowed down for him too. Even being a veteran guy, this offense has slowed down for him. So putting all these pieces together, every night when we get together with Coach Reed and we talk about each player, offense, defense, special teams, it's always really fun for us as coaches to see the guys that jump out that maybe are getting these opportunities, making the most of it.
Anybody in that spot, those positions?
I wouldn't say just yet, but that's the part that's exciting is when we get the pads on. That's what we want to see. When things become real, the defense knows the runs can come. We know that we can, be offensively, we can throw the ball, run the ball, and I think that's the rest of the camp is going to be fun.
About a guy like Nico, the special teams is obviously going to be big for him, but what does he need to show you when the pads come up?
Just that he's got to be able to do what he's doing right now in shorts. But the reason why I believe in Nico is because of his mental makeup. He's in a good place. He started it last year. He got hurt. He stayed with us most of the year last year, came in great shape OTAs, and is putting together so far right now. So that special teams part is valuable in that role. We know numbers-wise how big that is. So he's going to get opportunities. What's he going to do with it?
Good as the defense was last year, the way things unfolded, you guys really leaned into playing complementary football. I do wonder, though, do you feel like part of what you want to achieve this year is to, for lack of a better term, impose your own will more offensively?
I would agree with that. When you're out there, every year is going to be different. You got to kind of go with the strides. Our defense was so good last year, and we hit some patches of some struggles offensively. So you do want to play complementary football, and that's how we just ended up winning the Super Bowl. Was when we had to make plays at the end of the Super Bowl, we had to win on offense. We did it. We look back as a positive, but we got to be better throughout the game and season this year. That's the challenge, and I think all of us are very competitive, and we all want that. And so now it's a new year, and we got to get off on the right foot.
You guys are always going to let it fly at camp, but I mean, is this a little more indicative of what you hope the regular season will look like?
You know Coach Reed, right? Coach Reed likes to go deep, so we're going to try to go deep as much as we can, and then play off of what we have or what they give us.
Matt, just another year on staff, another year as OC for you. Just how are you balancing wanting so much for your offense for this team with your own personal expectations and what you want to do for your own career?
Yeah, it's all about us, and I think that's what's great for me in my role is I've been in this role now 2 years, back in 16 and 17, and now heading into my second year now, and they're different roles, but I look at it more so from I've been with Kelsey a long time. I've been with Pat quite a long time. Some of these young guys that come in, I want to be able to be great to them and help them exceed as players, and then us as a unit, like how can I be the best leader for them, my style, my way, but yet still challenge them. And so last year was last year. Now we jump into this year. And right now is about these guys. And then we get to the season, it's going to be about winning as a team. And that's the only thing that we care about. And all the other stuff, all the other stuff takes care of itself.
So that was Matt Nagy from earlier today at Chiefs camp. All those deep balls you're seeing the footage of from Missouri Western, those don't seem to be an accident. It seemed very intentional that they're trying to get that on film. They're trying to get that ironed out. They're trying to bring it back.
Why not? Been a long time. Before we get to the news at the top of the hour, guys, a reminder to go visit my friends at Calhoun's Jewelers. Whatever your jewelry needs are, something for yourself, something for a special someone, they can help you find exactly what you're looking for, just like they've done for me for years. Visit him online at calhoonsjewelers.com or check him out right here in the capital city at 1801 Southwest Gage Boulevard.
That'll do it for this hour of 580 Sports Talk. Coming up at the 4 o'clock hour, we'll talk to Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com. We'll have What Is Wrong With You. But first, the top 25 NFL players of the century as ranked by ESPN on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk, hour number 3 on this Wednesday edition. Hope everyone is having an outstanding day. And thanks for spending part of it with us here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on the YouTube video stream, 580 Sports Talk, on our Facebook channel, as well, our Facebook page as well, WIBW News. It's great to have you aboard on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Dan Lucero. That's Brendan Dworzinski. Spencer Dupuy's on vacation. Trenton Craxner's doing his thing across the glass. Our summer intern is our producer engineer. Halfway home on this Wednesday edition. Still to come.
Spencer's been exiled, by the way.
Has he been exiled?
He's been exiled.
That's one way to go on vacation.
Yeah. He's been banished.
What is exile if not a vacation? When you were forced to take.
I'm sure
but
Elba
vacation
is
all
lovely.
the same. Is that where we sent him?
Yeah. Spencer and Napoleon, a lot of similarities.
It was that or the Maldives, and the budget is what the budget is. So still to come on 580 Sports Talk today.
Elba is beautiful.
We've got a couple of news stories on what is wrong with you. Tim Fitzgerald's going to join us bottom of this hour for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. It's our good friend from GoPowerCat.com. Lots of sports headlines in the 5 o'clock hour, and a very funny viral video today featuring Bengals wide receiver Jamar Chase. That will lead us to a broader discussion about who the Chiefs' primary rival is at this stage of things.
Dude, the average daily high in July in Elba is 74.5 degrees. That sounds wonderful. Exile? Yeah. Man, they're like a sabbatical.
I wouldn't need to be at gunpoint or sword point to be sent there. No, that sounds fabulous.
Average low in January, 42. The weather's incredible all the time.
Not to turn this into 580 weather talk, but I've rather enjoyed the temperate summer temperatures we've had the last few days.
Yeah.
Those are coming to an end.
No.
And that's over. Gonna be back in the upper 90s like a Cole Reagan's fastball like today and for the foreseeable future. So you got that to look forward to, folks. You got a lot to look forward to on today's episode of the show as well. You can interact with us in the YouTube live chat. Go on over to the YouTube channel. If you've never watched live on YouTube before, maybe you're sitting at your desk at work or you've got your phone. You've never watched the show live on YouTube. I mean, it's not like we're doing handstands or anything like that, but it's a fun hang because of the great folks in the YouTube live chat. I can't do a handstand.
I mean, if I held your legs up, you could prop them against the wall and do it.
I'd give you about a second and a half and then come tumbling down. No like physical challenges or anything, but you get to watch us and hang out with us and the YouTube commenters. We got the live chat going. Great way to interact with us and interact with other listeners here on the show. So go on over to the YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. You can also comment in the Facebook comments as well if you're watching on Facebook, WIBW News. We also have the Top City Metal Supply text line, and that is open for you to text us, 785-272-9429. Send us your thoughts on the Top City Metal Supply text line. No more wasting money on metal pieces that leave you with unnecessary leftovers. Top City Metal Supply will cut exact lengths of aluminum, steel, and stainless steel tailored to your project's specifications. Start optimizing your budget with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. So ESPN has been ranking their top athletes of the 21st century so far. And they did their top 100 athletes across all sports. And now they started breaking it out into different sports. And today they put out the top 25 NFL players of this century. So it's important to note that as we start the discussion on this, if we have a player whose career spanned the centuries, who broke in the 90s and then had a couple of seasons where they played in the 2000s, it's only the stuff you did from 2000 on that is considered on this particular list of the top 25 NFL players of the 21st century. I have seen the list. I have the list in front of me. Brendan has not.
No, I intentionally was waiting until late in the show to look at it so that I could have a very fresh reaction. And then Dan said, well, let's react live. So
yes,
I'm ready.
We're going to do it live.
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
We will do it live. Bleep it. So here are the first 5 out. Here are the players that weren't good enough to crack the top 25 in order. Terrell Owens, Marvin Harrison, Orlando Pace, Larry Fitzgerald, Jonathan Ogden.
Man,
That's what we're dealing with here.
Okay. Which of these is the most egregiously placed of those 5 to you? I want to see if we're on the same page here.
So
I think it's very easy, to be honest.
I think it's Larry Fitzgerald.
Too high or too low?
Too low.
That is a fascinating response. I was going to say Orlando Pace. Not in the top. I'd put him in the top 25.
See, I agree with Ogden ahead of Pace. And I'd put Walter Jones ahead of both of those guys historically, but I'm a little biased.
Actually, honestly, I'd put both of them. You're actually right. Ogden probably does belong in front of Pace. I would put Ogden in the top 25, though, without thinking twice. Larry Fitzgerald, great player. Is Larry Fitzgerald overrated?
No. Larry Fitzgerald, unbelievable, and had a lot of crappy quarterbacks in his career and remained unbelievable until the very end.
Yeah.
Second in NFL history in catches and receiving yards. Only Jerry Rice. Now,
it helps to play 18 years,
yes,
though.
some of that was a bit of accumulation towards the end, but Jerry Rice wasn't an accumulator. He was out there with the Seahawks in his 40s. He had his hairline like halfway up his head.
Yeah, but hold on. I got to pull his numbers up here real quick. Yes, I mean, he was compiling late in his career. I would also be willing to listen to the argument that the single best football player of all time is Jerry Rice.
Yeah, you know who would agree with you? Former host of this program,
Jake would agree with
you.
Absolutely.
Jake would sign off on that 100%. I used to be able to make him so mad by insisting Randy Moss was better.
You did. That did make him very mad.
That was the way I could stir him up.
Fitz is great. I'm not gonna freak out about that. Fitz is great.
And he did, as Jason points out in YouTube live chat.
He only made one first-team All-Pro.
That is.
Because he did have a couple of seasons that were pretty incredible.
One team guy, too, which is pretty neat about the length of his career.
Especially for a garbage team.
And I agree with him over Harrison and Owens, for what it's worth. I would certainly rank him ahead of both of those guys.
You're probably right. You see T.O. the other day blamed Tom Brady for him not getting back in the league in his late 40s.
Yeah, I'm sure it was all Tom Brady's fault. Anyway, let's get into the top 25, shall we?
All right, let's do it.
Number 25, Derek Brooks.
Great player. 4-time first-team All-Pro. All 2000s team. I'm okay with him in the top 25.
Number 24, former Chief. First former Chief on the list, Tony Gonzalez.
Hard to argue. So I don't know
how many tight ends we're going to have on this list.
Well, there's the thing. It's hard to know going from 25 to 1 who is ahead of them. But space on the top 25, approved. Yes.
Yeah. Number 23, Joe Thomas.
Joe Thomas is great. Was he better than Jonathan Ogden?
See, the whole argument for Joe Thomas was he never missed a snap. He played an unofficial NFL record, 10,363 consecutive snaps.
I mean, 6-time first-team All-Pro is incredible. And another one-team guy who played for awful team. I mean, the Browns were never. They had one competitive season.
Does he get too much credit for that? Does he get too much credit for being the only good Brown?
Yes, I think so. Because Joe Thomas was also Joe Thomas was never I live, breathe, eat, sleep football guy. I really like football. I'm really good at it, but he was never dyed in the wool. I have to be a football player guy.
Right.
Which makes you think well, maybe he just never left because he didn't really care about winning a Super Bowl and he was just sort of comfortable, which I think kind of changes things. I don't think Larry Fitzgerald was that guy.
No.
I think Larry Fitzgerald he single-handedly won them multiple playoff games.
Yes, he leveled up when they were good.
Yes.
When they were good, he was at his very best.
I remember it well. I mean, Thomas was great. I would put him below Jonathan Ogden, but he was great. Hard to argue.
Number 22, Warren Sapp.
I wish he was a worse player because he's an all-time bad guy.
Yeah.
Just an all-time jerk.
Incredibly unpleasant person, Warren Sapp.
But a hell of a player.
96.5 career sack, third all-time among defensive tackles.
He was an interior. Yeah, deserved.
Yeah, total menace. Yeah, Warren Sapp belongs on the list.
No kidding.
21, Marshall Faulk.
Yeah, Marshall Faulk ruled, man. Only a 2-time first-team All-Pro, but he won an MVP. If Marshall Faulk played today, can you imagine the stats he would have put up with that kind of receiving ability in an era where they still ran out of the pro set?
Yeah, no kidding. What we see Christian McCaffrey today, Marshall Faulk was at 25 years early.
Was he a little bigger than McCaffrey?
Yes. I think so.
He was a Hall of Famer and still was ahead of his time. Yeah, I think he deserves it.
Marshall Faulk was 5'10", 210. McCaffrey 5'11", 205. So actually
about the same size. Okay.
Right about the same. Yeah.
That's white guy bias. Let's just be frank. That's
number 20, LaDainian Tomlinson.
The worst thing about this is ESPN used a picture of him in a Jets uniform.
Yeah, that's
so disrespectful.
That's appalling.
I think also deserves a spot.
They also used a picture of Tony Gonzalez in a Falcons uniform. So we're just all about the disrespect here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like Tomlinson, touchdown merchant?
Man, he was so good, though.
He was
another great receiver, too.
Yeah.
I'm cool with LT. I'm sorry, BLT for baby LT.
Number 19, Michael Strahan.
Did I tell you that recently my wife found out that he was a football player?
No, I love that, though.
I made some comment about it.
He's been on, like, morning show TV now long enough. I'm sure there are people who are discovering him who are like, oh, wait, he played football?
I think we were watching a commercial for Password or whatever. No, Pyramid, whatever game show he's hosting now. And I made a comment about how, yeah, man, like, I can't believe the gap-toothed, like, nasty defensive end became this, like, super lovable TV host. And she goes, what are you talking about? Like, he's a football player. And she did not know. So, I would bump him down from the top 20, but I mean, great career.
Number 8
does not deserve the single season sack record.
No, he has Brett Favre to thank for that. Number 18, Adrian Peterson.
I hate him so much. But
again, not a great guy.
Awful guy.
This feels low.
Probably. He also, like, who was doing the testing? Who was doing the PED testing when he came back from injury?
So every time I play, like, he played for a bunch of teams late in his career. Do you know exactly how many teams he ended up playing for at the very end?
Like 4.
So after he left Minnesota, there were 6 games in Arizona, 4 games in New Orleans, 2 full seasons in Washington.
I remember that.
A full season in Detroit. And then in 2021, 3 games with the Titans.
Yep.
1 game with the Seahawks.
I remember that.
I do too. 11 carries, 16 yards, 1 touchdown.
I do not remember the Saints at all.
So I'm always trying to use him on Immaculate Grid and think I'm being sneaky. Like today, I think it was Lions and Titans. Lions and Titan Square. Yeah. Adrian Peterson. I'm going to get such a good rarity score. No, 49%. Everybody remembers watched Adrian Peterson. But, like, not watched Adrian Peterson, to me, 18 is too low for Adrian Peterson. Number 17, somebody we just mentioned, Brett Favre.
When's the next time a running back's going to go to the Hall of Fame, by the way, after AP?
Derrick Henry. Christian McCaffrey.
You think CMC will make it in?
They are both on that trajectory, yes.
I hope it. I won't.
The standard of, like, the best guys at their position are always going to make the Hall of Fame. It's just the standard for what those numbers look like. It's like pitchers in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
That's
the
true.
Standard, the numerical standards, the length of career. Yeah. Those standards are going to that window is going to shift.
It's funny though because it's the reverse of other positions, right? Like for wide receiver, the bar keeps going up. For quarterback, the bar keeps going up. For running back, you're lowering the bar, which I think is funny. All right, who's next again, please?
Brett Favre. It's wild that he is this high on the 2000s list because he won all 3 of his MVPs in the 90s.
Yeah, that might be a little high for the 2007 and 2009, he was incredible.
Yeah.
I need to see where another former Green Bay Packer quarterback is before I tell you how fair this is. Because I have a take that for old people in Wisconsin is very hot. I don't think it is a hot take at all, though. So I need to see where Rodgers is.
Number 16, Troy Polamalu. Feels low. He was unbelievable.
He was. Yeah, he was great. Deserves a spot.
Just very few defensive players in history. Like, you had to know where they were on the field at all times, and he's one of them. Number 15, Drew Brees.
Brees has probably become underrated, by me included. I mean, he feels kind of like a completion percentage merchant, but also those peak Saints offenses were so good. Like 06 to 12, those offenses were just unbelievable. So, yeah, that's probably fair.
Number 14, Travis Kelce. The 14th best player of the century so far.
I think that sounds really high because it's like an inherent rejection of recency bias. But I'll be honest with you, man. Like, do you think Travis Kelce is the greatest tight end of all time?
I do, yes.
I do too. Or at least when it's all said and done. You can give me Gronk. He might be on this list later. Like, for peak, I get that. All things considered, Travis. funny enough, that's the reverse of the Mahomes-Brady conversation, isn't it? Like, Brady accomplished all that other stuff. Mahomes is the better quarterback than Tom Brady.
Yes.
In terms of the ability. I think he's the best of all time. If you're talking best tight end of all time, then yeah, he's the best of his 25-year stretch. I think that's fair.
Number 13, Rob Gronkowski. So that's where they come down on that debate.
I'd take Kelsey. I get it if you pick Gronk. Gronk healthy, maybe the most unique weapon in the NFL in this era. What are you getting 10 games? Getting 17?
Right.
Getting 12?
Availability is an ability.
A
and
major
I think
one.
his inability to be available as often as he could have, and that's not his fault. He just took some hits and had some injuries. That, to me, is why he historically is below Kelsey. Like, Kelsey was always there.
Greatness and peak are different things.
Number 12, one of my favorites, Charles Woodson.
This is not only deserved, I would argue this might even be too low. Charles Woodson is also, to me, in the conversation for best football player ever.
I like that take.
Unbelievable player.
I like that take. Number 11, Ed Reed.
Yeah,
I loved Ed Reed.
Maybe the smartest defensive back to ever play. Yeah, he was great.
So, okay, this is fascinating. Now all three of these guys are together because number 10 is Darrelle Revis, former Chief. Another Chief on the list.
Titans hero.
That is not the order I would rank them historically. I would go Reed, Revis, Woodson. And I could be talked into Woodson above Revis.
I think Woodson is helped by the fact that he aged way more gracefully than Revis.
We didn't see washed Woodson. He never got there. No. Revis's peak was probably higher, but we saw washed Revis. We saw it in Kansas City.
Because you know what Woodson became when he was kind of washed as a corner? He became a slot safety hybrid who was kind of at the forefront of that becoming an important position in the NFL. And he was good. He started that in Green Bay at the end of his time there, and then did that his final couple years in Oakland. Revis's peak was the best maybe of any of them. Yes. Reed and Woodson were just so great for so long. Revis at his peak had like the two best cornerback seasons ever. You could order them in any direction and I'm fine with it. That's probably right for all of them.
Number 9, Aaron Rodgers.
A fair number of spots ahead of Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers is better than Brett Favre. I know people like 48 and older would disagree with me who live like in Waukegan, Illinois and north. Aaron Rodgers is better than Brett Favre. And I don't really think it's much of an argument. Brett Favre saved the city of Green Bay, but Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback.
I think Brett Favre and John Elway have the greatest quarterback arms that we have ever seen. Just in terms of arm, like ability to throw the ball.
Yes.
Context, strip away all the other context. Ability to throw the football.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, I don't think has ever done it better than Brett Favre and John Elway. Brett Favre didn't take care of the football.
He threw more interceptions than any other quarterback ever. I think he ended up with more than Eli.
Yes.
Who finished second.
I think that's right.
He's probably not going to be on this list.
No. He's not.
I think I'm biased, obviously. I think this is fair for Aaron Rodgers. The man has won 4 MVPs. He was a Super Bowl MVP. He's going to have some all-time touchdowns.
4 MVPs might mean he's low here, honestly.
Dude, go watch some clips from the 2011s. I still think the single greatest quarterback season ever was Aaron Rodgers in 2011. Mahomes 2019 is very close, but I mean, at his peak, untouchable stuff.
Number 8, Ray Lewis. I would have Rodgers over Lewis.
I would too. I need to see. There is another name. There is another middle linebacker that I need to know if he is on this list in the final 7 picks. Ray Lewis, great, deserved, probably should be in the top 15 or so. I would also put Rodgers ahead of him, though. And I need to see if there's another defensive player here.
Number 7, J.J. Watt.
Probably fair. Again, availability is important. If he had been available, we'd probably be talking with him along with LT and Reggie White as like maybe the greatest to ever do it.
3 defensive players of the year. I think only 1 defensive player should be ranked above him, and I think he is. I don't think we've gotten to him yet. Number 6, Calvin Johnson. That seems a little high. Great player, but this is high for Calvin Johnson.
I get that. I was not old enough to really appreciate Randy Moss bursting onto the scene. I remember early 2000s Randy Moss.
And by the way, we'll just go ahead and jump ahead. Number 5, Randy Moss.
Yeah, I get it. I'm not going to argue with it. I didn't get to see 98 Randy Moss. I don't remember when I was 4 years old. And I never got to see the peak of Jerry Rice when I was alive. Calvin Johnson's the best wide receiver I've ever seen. Like, getting to see the bulk of his career, the domination of Calvin Johnson, I can't think of anyone who compares.
To be 6'5" and run like he ran, it was a cheat code. But I would rank Moss historically over Johnson.
That's
and
fine.
I think that's a proper order. So the final four in the top 25 NFL players of this century is ranked by ESPN.
There's at least 3 quarterbacks here.
Number 4 is one of them, Peyton Manning.
Yeah, fine.
Number 3 is Aaron Donald.
Okay, so we're missing a player who I think should also be ahead of Ray Lewis.
Urlacher?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No. Ray Lewis is so much better than Brian Urlacher. This is your Chicago showing.
I did actually have a Brian Urlacher jersey.
This is your Chicago showing, and that's okay.
That Ray Lewis is better than Brian Urlacher until you run a post route. Brian Urlacher, okay, let me rephrase this. Let me rephrase it this way.
Mm-hmm.
If I was building a Madden Ultimate team today, I would rather have Brian Urlacher than Ray Lewis.
Because coverage is more important?
Because I think coverage is more important. But if you want to say for the time they played, I will concede that.
Okay, fair enough. Aaron Donald, number 3, highest ranked defensive player.
He's maybe the best defensive tackle ever. I'm fine with it.
And number 2 is Patrick Mahomes, and number 1 is Tom Brady.
I mean, it's a rings thing at that point, right? And
it is. That's the argument. And look, it's a fair argument.
Yeah.
Tom Brady won like nobody has ever won, and nobody may ever win again. But like, you watch the two play. Like, if you didn't know anything about football and you watched the Brady film and you watched the Mahomes film, there's no way you come away from it wanting anybody other than number 15 in red.
Yeah.
Like that's the, like, if you were an alien and you arrived from outer space and you'd never seen a game of football before in your life, and the first 2 games you watched were prime Brady playing quarterback and prime Mahomes playing quarterback. I don't even know if we've seen prime Mahomes yet, which is kind of a scary thing to think about. Yeah, you're taking Mahomes.
I agree.
You just, it would be that obvious physically that what you were seeing with Mahomes was better talent-wise than what you were seeing from Tom Brady. But Tom Brady won like crazy and was great in the big games. And yeah, if you want to give him the historical credit, he's got the head start. He's got 4 Super Bowls on Mahomes for now. I'm fine with that.
I'm actually surprised by how okay I was with this list. I would move some guys around, but I actually think in terms of the personnel, they mostly got it right.
Walter Jones not being on here is very upsetting to me.
I would agree with that. Walter Jones deserves
extremely upsetting to me because he was the best left tackle of his era. But he was better than Ogden. He was better than Pace. He was better than those guys. And to not even get on the that to me is the biggest omission of the group. But yeah, other than that, like, a few guys you move up, a few guys you move down, but like, they got the right guys.
I'm actually kind of surprised it was this good.
Yeah,
I'm very surprised.
Nice job by the folks over at ESPN. We got to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk, and we got What Is Wrong With You next. But first, it's time to visit the DM Injury Law Royals ticket window. Have you or a loved one been in a car wreck? Contact DM Injury Law today and get the money you deserve. Car wreck? Remember, Mike's got this. We've got a family 4-pack of tickets to see the Royals and the Cubs on Friday night on Patrick Mahomes bobblehead night.
Can I win these?
No, you cannot.
Nah.
We'll take caller number 3 to 785-272-9429. That's caller number 3 to 785-272-9429 for a family 4-pack of Royals tickets for Friday night. And we'll come back with What Is Wrong With You next on 580 Sports Talk. Before What Is Wrong With You, congrats to Sam. He's our winner of a family 4-pack of Royals tickets, a Friday night's game against the Cubs. But if you didn't win today, listen tomorrow. We got another family 4-pack to that game to give away as well. Hopefully we'll have 8 people come back with the Mahomes bobblehead if you show up on time to the game. So be listening tomorrow. Can't promise it'll be the same time, but it'll be during the show. During the show, between 2 and 6, we're going to make another trip to the DM Injury Law Royals ticket window, give away another 4-pack for Royals Cubs on Friday night. 2 new stories on What Is Wrong With You today. The current champion, Vance, from the YouTube live chat, named it Chicken Strip Chaos. The woman who was upset that she was shorted a chicken strip at the Jack in the Box, spit in the manager's face, and then hit her with her car on the way out of the restaurant.
Just a little extreme.
Doing a lot. Your story first, Brendan.
All right, my story's taking us to Dallas, Georgia, where police are looking for a Florida man they believe stole a stretcher from one of their funeral homes. Dallas police officers responded to a vehicle break-in all the way back on May 6th on Hardy Street at Benson's funeral home. During the investigation, officers discovered a medical stretcher had been stolen from one of the vehicles. Police detectives collected evidence and linked the theft of the stretcher to several other incidents in the metro area. That's Atlanta. Their investigation identified 56-year-old Michael Johnson of Florida as the offender. An arrest warrant has been issued for Johnson for the criminal offense of entering an automobile with intent to commit theft. He also has an extensive history of theft. Any further information regarding Johnson's whereabouts is encouraged to be delivered to the Dallas Police Department.
Really need a stretcher.
What is wrong with you here? Why are you stealing a stretcher?
You needed a stretcher.
Like, that's straight up kleptomania at that point. There's no need for that. I'm certain of it.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. My story today takes us north of the border to Canada. Toronto neighborhood known as St. Jamestown had been without power for a while, and that upset the tenants of an apartment building so much that they were throwing poop at the people trying to fix the power.
Oh, come on.
A letter received by people living in the neighborhood read, "It has come to our attention that a small group of residents are repeatedly interfering with, threatening, and or harassing members of the electrical contracting team. Reports of unacceptable behavior include throwing human waste from upper-level balconies at workers below, aggressive language, and or hostile interactions. These actions are disrupting efforts to repair the building and will only serve to prolong the restoration effort." It makes no sense, the letter goes on to say, why anyone would want to interfere with this work. Look, if I were without power for like days, that would bother me as well. Like I'd probably run out of phone battery. It would be real problematic. Like I got to keep like bottles of formula cold for my kid. Like that would bother me a lot. But one thing I would not do is fling poo at the people trying to fix the problem.
Yeah.
They're working as hard as they can, man.
I got to be without power for a couple of weeks at least, if not months, before I start flinging waste at other people.
Yeah, like your plumbing works, right? Vance asked, were they doing a crappy job? Somebody was. I think
that wins today.
That wins today, but I enjoy the more lighthearted story of the woman upset about the missing chicken strip.
You know, I don't know how lighthearted it is when she hit another person with her car, but I do find that one to be funnier.
One chicken strip. Oh, you don't have ranch dressing? How about a side of vehicular assault instead? It's going to be our continuing champion on What Is Wrong With You. Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com joins us next for the Wildcat Wrap-Up here from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on 580 Sports Talk. Always a big victory for this show when Tim Fitzgerald joins us, the publisher of GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can check out he and his staff's great work there at GoPowerCat.com. And you can hear Fitz on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every Wednesday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz, getting closer and closer to football.
My gosh, it's going so fast. I can't believe it's almost August and football practice will be open.
And of course, because it's not open yet, that means we still had some time to squeeze in some delightful conference realignment rumors here in the last week or so. We've had a chance to banter a little bit regarding Clemson and Florida State and the Big 12 and maybe their dissatisfaction with the ACC. The latest reporting has been that they've got a deadline in which they have to notify the ACC if they're not going to be in the league. And there's no expectation that they won't be in the league, at least in 2025. What, if anything, are you hearing about any movement in the direction of expansion from the Big 12's point of view at this point?
Well, I think they're in a wait and hold. I mean, I think some people misconstrue this to be like the Big 12's trying to force something to happen with the ACC. They're just preparing. And the ACC's plan of attack is apparently we're going to lock our two best properties in the basement and not let them go, which makes for a really cohesive and united conference. Everyone will really enjoy that. So they've got a real problem on their hands. They got to sort this out. And this basically lets them know they have a year to figure it out, to figure out how to keep them in the fold and keep them happy. And it's not by saying you're stuck with it. Unless the courts rule that, it is a $500 million buyout. And I think that's really the key here. We got to also wait for those court cases to play out and the two parties then know where they stand. And at that point, I'll be honest here, I don't really see a way for Florida State and Clemson, as the more I've thought about it, to end up in the Big 12, because as soon as they declare their independence and get out of the conference, unless they agree to join the Big 12 before doing that, and one scenario would be the Big 12 uses private equity to pay their buyout. Unless they're financially obligated to the Big 12, I think they'll get picked by the SEC or Big 10. They won't just let them float out there. But now we're pretty sure it's going to be another year, meaning if they would make a decision over this year, it'd be 2026 before they'd play in the new conference.
Is college sports, I won't even limit this to just football, is college sports better off if a league like the ACC is able to find stability and continue to be the national brand that it has been, rather than the continuing consolidation into fewer and fewer leagues?
Yeah, this sucks. I mean, it really does. But if you look at it from the television stations, the networks, this is great. They get to consolidate their money into fewer things, fewer contracts to negotiate, less moving parts, not really being able to take from this and give to that. And you're going to have a main contract, which is the SEC with ESPN and Fox with the Big Ten. And then it looks like they're going to share the other stuff with the Big 12, get along together. So I just think it's been a natural progression of the overall greed we've seen in college sports just grow into a monster that's consuming itself.
Moving to some actual college football, ESPN earlier this week published a piece about what they consider to be the biggest question marks for teams that they predict to be in the top 25 this season. And for Kansas State, the big question mark was depth at linebacker. How concerned are you about the depth of that position, and who are the guys that need to step forward, maybe in backup or secondary roles, to make sure that there is enough depth? Because K-State did deal with like an inordinate amount of injuries at the position last year. They've got two solid guys up front, Austin Moore and Desmond Purnell, but how much of a concern do you think is that depth?
Yeah, it is a concern, but we also know that they've got some guys that are really talented and can play at that spot. One of the guys that still needs to get healthy after blowing out his knee last year is Asa Newsom. And if Asa can get healthy again, he's just an elite player. But they're raving about Austin Romaine, who played as a true freshman. And, they brought in the guy from New Mexico. I think they've done a good job of bolstering their depth, but just probably not enough depth overall in that group that you would want. And it's hard to keep depth in every position. This is a pretty good team in terms of depth, but man, it's tough to keep it stocked all across the board at 85 scholarships.
We're chatting with Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com, joining us here for the Wildcat Wrap-Up on 580 Sports Talk via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Go check out GoPowerCat for all the best insight on all things going on with K-State. Make sure you're following and subscribing to GoPowerCat on YouTube as well, and you can find Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Speaking of scholarships, Fitz, where do you land on the proposed addition of 20 new scholarships for football? That was being reported on earlier today. Could be as many as 105 scholarships available for D1 FBS football. Where do you land? Is that a good thing, a bad thing, or somewhere in the middle?
It's a bad thing. I mean, college football got much more entertaining when they brought it down from 105 to 85. At 105, you could see programs just literally stockpiling talent so that nobody else could have it. Maybe that changes now in the world of NIL and the ability to get into the transfer portal. I don't know, as we head into this point where we're going to see universities struggling to pay the settlement and the House versus NCAA case, and then having to go into a rev share model with their student athletes. I can't imagine that they're going to be eager to add 20 football scholarships to their bill. But, one of the things that went hand in hand with this was flirting with no walk-ons. You had to be on scholarship, which I think is just atrocious. I don't see that passing, but we'll see how it plays out.
I imagine the programs who would be hurt most by this, and it's not just football. We'll get to this a little bit later on the show, but it's a lot of sports in Division I would allow for more scholarships. I would imagine the trickle-down effect of this would be, you're talking your FCS schools, even down to maybe D2, D3. They're going to end up getting hurt because the bigger programs are going to be able to, like you said, Fitz, hoard some of that talent. Then the other FBS programs can't get those guys. They got to dig down a little bit deeper. This feels like a reverse trickle down, I think, for college sports potentially.
I think you're right. Right now the power conferences are 65 schools. Take that times 20. I mean, you're talking about 1,300 players, right? That will now be taken by the power conferences that wouldn't have made it down to lesser levels of play. And I don't think that's good. I don't see how that serves the interest of anyone. And again, that's why I think it'd be voted down, because currently everyone gets to vote on these things, and maybe they're trying to create a level where the high Division I can vote on its own things and nobody else can. But I think in a case like this, that when it impacts the other divisions, they should get a vote, and I just don't see this passing.
Your daily delivery today, Fitz, over at GoPowerCat.com, all about the New York Post giving Avery Johnson as a pick to win the Heisman Trophy this year. So my question to follow up, Fitz, is how many units did you put down on that bet?
Look, I appreciate the New York Post following Kansas State athletics. Maybe this writer fell in love with them at the Elite Eight, because there were some cool photos and coverage in the Post of that with K-State out there a couple of years ago. But I don't think I know of any K-Staters that would go that far with Avery Johnson, let alone someone actually in the media. I think the best thing about the article was the implication that K-State lucked into Avery and he just dropped in their lap. I guess researching the recruitment would have been a little tough. Just use the internet to look up who all recruited him, and that K-State won him over those schools.
Yeah, I understand. We've complained about this. I've complained about this on this show plenty of times. I understand that when you're a national publication, whether it's the New York Post or ESPN or Fox Sports or whoever, it can be hard to get all the minute details on every program. There's a lot to cover in a lot of different sports. I get that. But you'd think that you'd want a little bit more context than that. Like this K-State team, this is not, the little engine that could anymore. In some ways it is, resource-wise, but this has been a really successful program with a really damn good head coach for a long time now. You'd think you'd, give a little more credence to that.
Yeah, I agree. This is what we're going to be facing, though, particularly with sports writers who are primarily NFL, which I think this guy's bio said that, and, sniffing into college, they're pretty much only going to look at Big Ten and SEC things. So it surprised me. And maybe he's so eager to be an outlier, he picked Avery based on that. And you know what? Let's be honest here. If he picks Cam Ward or Dylan Gabriel and they win the award, nobody says anything to him. You pick Avery Johnson and he wins the Heisman, you're a god. So why not take that shot if you're this reporter?
We're chatting with Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com for the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz, tell us a little bit about the most recent edition of the Life of Fitz podcast that came out earlier this week. A pretty fun get for you.
Yeah, I had Travis Geffert, the new track and field coach. What an impressive guy. And I appreciate him taking time. He can't hear these comments. Oh, hold on. He might be in Manhattan right now. Because he's heading to Paris, I think maybe in the morning. That direct flight, the Manhattan to Paris flight, which it's always full.
I think they put you on the 787 for that one.
Yeah. I mean, well, they can't really land it here. It's got to roll up to some houses beyond the strip, but that's okay. No, he's just fantastic. He was great, and he jumped in at the last second. I had recorded another one, and the audio failed for whatever reason. Well, the reason being I'm an idiot. But so we're going to re-record that one hopefully tomorrow. So it's been busy, but yeah, he was wonderful. It was a good episode.
What are your thoughts on his long-term vision for that program? I know that the Kansas State has really elevated a lot of their what you would consider the non-revenue or the Olympic. I prefer Olympic. Non-revenue is kind of dismissive, I think, in some ways. But the Olympic sports or the non-marquee sports in the athletic department have really leveled up in recent years at Kansas State. And what are your thoughts on the plan to keep leveling things up in track and field?
Yeah, he's right. They need to add some details to the track, indoor and outdoor. I've often thought they should expand the outdoor track into a much more significant structure in terms of seating, and really be able to hold some meets out there, which, if you do a good job with it, you might have the state meet. And I just think that's another step K-State needs to take. But he was blown away by the indoor. And boy, if he'd known how hard Cliff Revelto worked on that forever, only to retire as soon as it opened, he'd be impressed, because that's been needed a very long time, and I'm glad they addressed that. But he's in love with the facilities, and his family and him fell in love with the town.
We have probably asked you this question before, and goodness knows we'll probably ask you again at some point, because it's a good dead of summer pre-football question. But speaking of the broader athletic department at Kansas State, if they got in the business of adding a sport, what would you like to see them add?
Well, I've been on the record with this, and that won't happen in this new future of college athletics with all these lawsuits. But certainly softball and wrestling on the men's side. I'll be really honest, though. I mean, I don't necessarily like to do this, but I think they need to immediately drop a women's sport and add beach volleyball. And the reason why is, like track, Travis Giffords in charge of 6 of Kansas State's 16 athletic programs, men and women's teams for cross-country, indoor, and outdoor track. And those athletes overlap. If you're a distance runner running cross-country, you're running distance on the track, too. And same with beach volleyball. You open that up, and you've got more players coming in with your volleyball contract. Where you play, I guess it'd have to be at the rec or build something. And you might be playing in some bad weather at times, but I just think it's something that makes a lot of sense and kind of keeps you focused on the sports that you can be good at. But, if you wanted to go in and drop a couple other programs and add, wrestling on the men's side and softball on the women's side, I think it'd be a really strong move by the department. Now, financing, they're not going to do that. But those are two premier high school sports in this state, girls softball, boys wrestling. And now I understand now that, women's wrestling is beginning to pick up steam, but we've seen a lot of great athletes, great wrestlers in this state have to go out of state to be at, compete at a high level. And I think it's kind of sad Kansas State doesn't offer softball nor wrestling.
Tim Fitzgerald covers Kansas State athletics. He and his outstanding staff at GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. And Fitz joins us every Wednesday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. Fitz, it is always a pleasure. Look forward to talking to you again next week, as I think next week we're going to have some football practice to talk about.
I think we will. I don't know how this has happened. Football season is basically arriving, and I don't have anything to wear. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Well, I'll let you go hit up Kohl's or wherever you need to hit up and get a wardrobe check, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you. That is Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com. We got one more hour of 580 Sports Talk from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Stay with us. Let's get it. Final hour of the day here on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dworzinski, Trenton Craxner with you this Wednesday afternoon. Thanks for spending some time with us talking sports on 580 WIBW FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on the YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk is the YouTube channel. Subscribe today. See our smiling faces. Check out the cool Kansas Drive to Zero banner in the background. Be a fan with a plan. Always designate a sober driver or a ride share if you plan to drink at the ball game.
I ain't smiling. I'm mean mugging.
You're mean mugging today?
Yeah.
Your serious face. I'm sorry. Every time you do the serious face, I think of that picture of you with the vest.
Oh no, that's the turn on some mood lighting.
That's
face.
the sensuous. That's sensual, Brendan.
That's the sensuous face right there. That's after hours.
Brendan after dark.
That's after hours with Big D right there.
Oh God.
It's my DJ name in college. It was DJ Big D. Then I found out there's a country DJ that uses that name. I had to dump that.
Oh my goodness.
Terrible. Yeah. No, I've got a deep bag of facial expressions. Mean bugging, not great. I used to get made fun of when I played baseball as a kid. When I would throw the ball really hard, I'd bite down really hard on my lower lip. Like, really bite on it.
That was your RPF. Your resting pitch face.
It really was.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I was in college. It was, I think, 14 or 15, and I was at Lollapalooza. Okay. And we're pretty close to the front of the stage. I think it was 15. And the person I was dating at the time, very small, very short, and she was getting real jostled around in the crowd. And someone came up behind her and just like straight up shoved her.
Oh, geez.
And so I went obviously into, fight mode. And I turn around, I start reaching at the guy, and I did the biting my lower lip thing. And my friends who have known me for my whole life were also there with me, just start bursting out laughing in the middle of this Donnybrook because I made my like 4th grade Little League baseball face trying to fight this guy. Still get crap for that now. That's not part of the sensual face or the mean mug.
Well, whatever faces we end up making on the show, you can see them if you watch the YouTube live stream. We recommend that you do that. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Subscribe today. See all of our live and archive content. You can also watch the show on Facebook if you're one of those that likes to have Facebook open at work or at home and you'd like to have us on Facebook. You can do that. WIBW News is the name of the Facebook page. 1 hour left on the show today, and then we've got some overtime for you before we hand it off to the Royals Baseball Network at 6:30. Pregame coverage of Game 3 of the series between the Royals and the Diamondbacks. 7:10 first pitch from Kauffman Stadium tonight. Royals looking for a rubber game victory after falling 6-2 last night. We'll have a bit more of a preview of that one later on this hour. Also, a very funny viral clip going around today from Bengals wide receiver Jamar Chase led to a question about who exactly is the top rival of the Kansas City Chiefs at this stage. I think it's an interesting question. We'll talk about it a little bit later on. We'll also take your YouTube live comments. Live chat's been popping off today. Really appreciate all the comments and everybody chiming in. If you're watching again on YouTube at 580 Sports Talk, the Top City Metal Supply text line is open as well. 785-272-9429 is the number to text the program. But we're going to start the show today with some 580 Sports Talk headlines. We're going to begin with something that you made reference to, Brendan, in our conversation with Tim Fitzgerald in the most recent segment. We had Fitz on for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. The NCAA is looking to expand scholarship limits for a variety of sports. According to a report from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports, Power Conference commissioners have finalized new roster size limits that pave the way for athletic departments to distribute millions of dollars in new scholarships to athletes in, most notably, football, baseball, and softball. It's part of the new revenue sharing model that begins in the next academic year, 2025-26. By sport, scholarship restrictions are eliminated, and schools are permitted to offer scholarships to the entirety of their rosters. So the new roster limit figures are not final until the approval of house settlement terms in the NCAA. So, football. Currently, you're restricted to 85 scholarships. You don't have to give them all out. Many schools do not, but that's your limit. 85 scholarships.
Kansas, 2015.
Yes. What were they down? They were down like 30 some, weren't they?
According to some sources, it was as low as the high 20s, which is unthinkable.
Wow, I can't believe they didn't win more football games.
Yeah, right.
Truly amazing.
Good job, Charlie.
Anyhow, that number will go up by 20 to 105 scholarships. That may not be a requirement until the start of the competitive season, which would give coaches a chance to go beyond that figure during preseason camp. So you'd have some SEC schools like have 130 kids on scholarship and then just start cutting guys after spring practice. I don't see how that's real good for anybody.
It's not.
But that's the proposal for football. Baseball has a current scholarship restriction of 11.7.
Mm-hmm.
You get partial scholarships.
Yeah, I knew someone who played D1 baseball that I went to high school with, and he got like 30% of a scholarship to go to Michigan, essentially. Like, you better be really dang good to get a full ride.
Unless you're like Jack Caglione.
Right.
You're probably not on a full ride to play Division I baseball. Well, that will change if the scholarship restriction is raised to 34. That's enough to field an entire roster.
More than tripling.
Scholarship spots for softball and volleyball will also increase. Each sport has a scholarship restriction currently of 12. Softball will more than double, up to 25 scholarships. Volleyball will go up to 18 scholarships. And schools, again, are not required to distribute scholarships to each player. Schools are maybe unlikely to use all 34 of those baseball scholarships, or may not have the resources for all 105 of those football scholarships. Another key change to the scholarship structure: all sports will be considered equivalency sports, meaning partial scholarships can be distributed to players. That would be a change for football and basketball, which are considered head count sports, which means that if you're on scholarship, you're on a full scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case as we outlined for baseball and a lot of other sports. But for football and basketball, if you've got a scholarship to play the sport, it is a full ride scholarship.
I'm going to have to take back a whole lot of things I've said about the brotherhood at Duke if they start suddenly having a 20-man roster because kids are taking small scholarships. All that time talking about, hey, yeah, Zion didn't go there for the brotherhood. I'm going to have to go delete some tweets if that happens. That is, like, if you're Florida State and you can convince a handful of kids to take 3/4 of a scholarship, I mean, after a while, you're adding numerous players additionally to your roster. Interesting how the math will work. I don't know if that'll actually pan out and be useful, but it is interesting to note. Are you in favor of this? Fitz was very against it. I don't know that I'm against it per se, because I'm not going to crap on a kid for making money and getting a scholarship. I'm not going to complain about that. But I do think the consequence of this feels like it would be talent hoarding by the biggest program, the Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, programs like that, Michigan. Michigan recruits a little differently, but still hoarding all the 5- and 4-star talent. Then, your ACC, Big 12 programs, like, you're still getting mostly the same guys you get, but then there's an arms race in the Big 12 too. And if Mike Gundy can say, well, shoot, I want more depth, I want more guys I can redshirt, that's years and years and years of college football talent that I can keep that long. Hell yeah, I'm going to 105. Then suddenly there are Sun Belt players who, okay, well, our quality's going down a little bit. We got to go maybe recruit some kids who would otherwise be playing in, the Missouri Valley, really good FCS ball. And it just sort of trickles down to all of a sudden, like, who's D2 picking from? Because a lot of guys you would think were, D2 talents are suddenly technically D1 talents because the level of talent just keeps rising. Is that a bad thing? Bad is relative, but I think that would be a consequence of this.
So the very end of the article, Dellinger writes, some administrators are in the process of tiering their sports by decreasing investment in certain programs and increasing investments in others. This includes staff and salary cuts, as well as the reduction in scholarship from Olympic sports, especially those that generate little to no revenue. It's always the little guy that gets stepped on, right? And in college sports, the little guy is like the cross-country team or the golf team or a sport that maybe has been on the books at your institution, but hasn't generated much, if any, revenue or results. Like K-State women's soccer is not a winning program. Like, is that a program that all of a sudden we're yanking scholarships from the K-State women's soccer program so that we can go give that money to football and basketball players, or volleyball players or baseball players to maintain a level of that program to contend at? Always a little guy that gets stepped on here. But that being said, the flip side of this is if you want to run with the big dogs, you better spend like the big dogs. You better give the kids what they are owed, which is now a much larger share of the revenue that has not gone to them, particularly in the revenue sports, over a period of decades. And so if you're not prepared to have 105 scholarship kids, maybe you need to ask yourselves, is this a level of football that we need to be playing at? You need to there are going to be schools that need to ask themselves, is this a level of athletic competition that we need to be at? Do we need to be Division I? Does Houston Christian need to be a Division I institution?
Does this change for FCS versus FBS programs for football?
I'm not entirely sure. This is unclear. I think. I think that Division I is just Division I.
Because if that's the case, that is a lot more scholarship, and I think that would create an even bigger gulf in FCS than there already is. Frankly, like if you're North Dakota State, South Dakota State, you're some of those power programs in the Missouri Valley. I mean, you could add tons and tons and tons of players probably. Or, a Montana State, a good program like that. If you're a lower FCS team, though, I mean, what you can't pay like that. And you probably do need to reconsider, maybe we should be Division II. Or if it is different for FCS versus FBS, maybe some FBS teams will say, hey, man, maybe FCS is better for us. Maybe maxing out at 80 in FCS, hypothetically, is better for us than maxing out at 100. Maybe that's a better level of competition for us. I think more schools need to be considering
they need to be realistic
about
what is, like, if you're, let's say Colorado State. If you're Colorado State, should you be competing on the same level? Should you be playing at the same level of football as Alabama? Should you be playing at the same level of football as Ohio State? Probably not. Probably no. The problem is there's not really a tier of football between what we're going to start seeing the big dogs playing here in the next couple of years once this all kicks in, and the FCS. Because I think Colorado State and other programs like that, like Boise State, even some of the lower end schools in the Power Four would be really, really good in the FCS, like consistently pretty outstanding in the FCS, given, again, their resource advantages, their financial advantages. There's not really a tier 2 at this point. So I don't know, like, and again, that's strictly a football discussion, what the future of this looks like. But at the end of the day, this all goes back to it is right and just to make sure that more money, more revenue, let's put it that way, more revenue. People don't like to talk about the kids getting money or the kids getting paid. How about the revenue that they generate? More of a share of the revenue generated in college athletics, which, in case you haven't noticed, is a lot. More of that share, more of that pie being on the plates of the student athletes, the athletes, frankly, is a good thing. Starting from there and working backwards, well, that's where the NCAA has a problem, because they never wanted it to get to this point. Now that it's here, they're really unprepared, ill-equipped to deal with it adequately.
I will say this about moving from, and again, maybe if this changes for FCS, this is somewhat moot, but if a school is considering, hey, maybe, a MAC program or even, even a Mountain West or something, like, hey, maybe moving down is something we should consider. Idaho, I've used them as an example before. They got killed when they decided to move down from FBS to FCS. They had been in the Sun Belt, and then they moved down following the 2017 season to the FCS level. And it was a really rough political move for the president of the university at the time, who ended up making that decision. They went to the playoffs this year in the FCS. And you know who they're playing now in FCS football? They're playing teams that are more so their peers and teams that are closer. They're still going to play up. They're going to play Wyoming this year. They're going to play UC Davis. They're going to play Montana State, Portland State, Weber State, schools that are of a similar size, schools that are in a similar part of the country. It's like an hour drive to Eastern Washington. You know who they were playing in the Sun Belt in 2017? Louisiana Lafayette, Arkansas State, South Alabama. Like,
that doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. And I think more schools are going to have to consider that. They really should.
All right, Brendan, what's your first headline today?
First headline for me today, let's do some NFL news and notes, shall we? Plenty of stuff from around training camps today. First things first, a couple of holdouts and hold-ins. Why don't we start with the Dallas Cowboys? CeeDee Lamb not going to appear at Cowboys training camp, at least for now.
So I guess if you go watch Chiefs Cowboys training camp, you won't CeeDee Lamb.
Ha 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 ha.
Thank you.
Nice.
That's what that deserved.
That wasn't nice. No. So he has not gotten the contract extension that he was hoping to get this offseason. He is not going to report to training camp, did not report today. He is not expected to in the near future. He's heading into the final year of a contract, which will pay him $17.99 million this season. And according to reporter Todd Archer of ESPN, the Cowboys have been bracing for this throughout the off season. They also, as we know, still need to pay Dak Prescott. I'd pay Lamb. He's good. I'm a big CeeDee Lamb guy. I think he's great. How about the San Francisco 49ers? A hold out and a hold in. The latter is Brandon Ayuk. We heard yesterday he was going to show up to 49ers camp, even though he wants a new contract. That has gotten kind of nasty between Ayuk and his current team, the San Francisco 49ers. But he is there. He's just not practicing, so he still gets paid. Trent Williams is not at camp. He wants a reworked contract. He is not even showing up right now to San Francisco 49ers camp. That's really the only leverage you have, and it's not even really leverage, because if you're not on your rookie contract, they fine you every day, and they can't forgive those fines. That was part of the new CBA, which, what are you doing, Players Association? CeeDee Lamb is on his rookie deal still, so he can actually have his fines forgiven if he works out a deal with the Cowboys. Trent Williams cannot, so he's losing $40K a day that he does not show up. But that's essentially your leverage if you're a player with the new holdout rules, is saying, all right, well, you're not going to get any better if I'm not there, which we'll see if that ends up working for Trent Williams. I'm starting to feel bearish on the 49ers, by the way. We'll do some season predictions later on in the summer. I'm feeling a little bearish on the 49ers this year.
Vibes are not great.
No, they are very bad, in fact. Other notes from around the league. Dan, you will never believe this. Randy Gregory has not showed up to Bucs camp.
No way.
Unbelievable, frankly. He has not showed up to Bucs. He, a malcontent? I can't believe it. He is absent without leave. There has been no reason given. Todd Bowles pretty much said, whatever, I don't care, moving on. Same can be said, by the way, for Robert Saleh in New York. Hassan Reddick, who they traded for, has not reported to Jets camp, and Robert Saleh said, I got 89 other guys to worry about. Like, whatever, figure it out. Two other retirement pieces of news today. Wide receiver Michael Gallup, former Cowboy, he retired after 6 NFL seasons, was never the same after that ACL injury. Real bummer. Good player when he was healthy. He had a 1,000-yard season a couple years ago. Got paid pretty well, though, by the Cowboys. Over $30 million earned in his short career. And Brandon Graham, longtime edge rusher for the Philadelphia Eagles, he announced this will be his final season. He is going to retire at year's end.
What a career Brandon Graham has had.
He went from early on in his career kind of feeling like a bust to actually being a really solid player for a really long time. So far in his career, why did this pull up the wrong guy named Graham? Why? That was a spelling error on my part. He's played since 2010, every year of his career with the Eagles. He has racked up a career total of 73 sacks, including 11 2 seasons ago. A second-team All-Pro back in 2016, has a Pro Bowl to his name as well. Comeback Player of the Year votes back in 2022 as well. Just a very steady player for a long time. They have lost, by the way, after this season ends, in one calendar year, the Eagles will have lost their 3 players who have played the most games in franchise history.
Wow.
Number 1 is Brandon Graham already. He's going to retire. Jason Kelsey's number 2. Fletcher Cox is number 3.
Brandon Graham's senior year at Michigan. Do you remember who the quarterbacks were?
So 2009. Ooh,
The
that's post-Henny.
Yes. The head coach was Rich Rodriguez. The starter was a gentleman named Tate Forcier.
Oh, my God. Tate Forcier.
And Denard Robinson was his backup. That's how long ago Brandon Graham was playing college football.
Yeah.
That's just to give you a little perspective.
Jeez Louise.
Next headline for me, some media news today. The NBA today has signed its 11-year media rights deal with Disney, NBC, and Amazon Prime Video on Wednesday. Wait a minute, you might be saying. You heard earlier this week in this very segment that TNT, Warner Brothers Discovery, was back in the game, had opted to match Amazon Prime's portion of the media rights deal. Well, the NBA said they don't believe in that, and they're not going to accept Warner Brothers Discovery's $1.8 billion per year offer. The offer was not considered a true match by the NBA. Turner Sports issued a statement today saying that they believe the league, quote, grossly misinterpreted our contractual rights. We have matched the Amazon offer as we have a contractual right to do and do not believe the NBA can reject it, TNT Sports said in a statement. So this is going to go to court.
Yep. More billable hours.
Amazon Prime, by the way, their package would get Friday night, select Saturday afternoons, Thursday night doubleheaders following the Thursday night football package, and also playoff games, the NBA Cup championship and semifinals, and a conference final. I'm just going to tell you this right now. Part of the reason I watch an NBA conference final if my team is not playing in it is because I can grab my TV remote and I can punch in the channel for TNT or ESPN. I don't like going to an app and being locked in on the game being the only thing I can watch on an app. Like,
yeah, I agree.
I think this is a too much dip on the chip moment for the NBA. I think they're going to find out that while they are popular, I think the NBA is a big deal. I'm not trying to say it's not. Very popular, globally, extremely popular. I don't think it's as popular as they think they are. I don't think they're as big a deal as they think they are. And I think they're going to find that out when the Amazon Prime numbers, I think, are going to not meet expectations if that's the route they go.
I mean, the NFL hasn't met the Amazon Prime expectations originally, and the NFL is much more popular than the NBA is. I mean, I like pro basketball, but I got to be really bored to go flip on the Amazon doubleheader. I'm going to be honest with you. Whereas, like, college basketball, I would do it, but the NBA, I mean, I'm just not into it like that. All right, final headline for today. You are familiar with the playoff roundup, folks, but with the Olympics starting today, yes, the opening ceremony is not until Friday, but because of some of the large-scale events, they had to start some games today. It is time for the Olympic roundup. Play my music. Oh. Yeah.
You want me to play it?
Yeah, can you play me?
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, I should have. All right, let me try that again.
My computer, Trenton.
All right.
Do it
the
again.
Olympic roundup. Play my music. Thank you, Kurt Angle.
It's so loud.
Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle playing us in.
Man, I haven't heard that one in years.
I told you that was a good bit.
That's a great bit.
I knew that was going to be good. All right. The games going on today, they involved just two sports. Men's football, soccer is what we call it here in the States, as well as men's rugby sevens. A quick note from that. The U.S. with an impressive start to their pool play in rugby sevens. They tied France in their first match of the day. Since then, they got absolutely annihilated by Fiji, 38-12.
Look, man, we shouldn't lose to Fiji at anything. I'm sorry. Not even rugby, nothing. There's nothing that the United States should lose to Fiji at.
I think they're really good.
No, they are.
I agree with you.
They're really about it when it comes to rugby, but we shouldn't be losing to Fiji.
So that is your rugby update. They also beat Uruguay today, 40-12. I don't know how they score in rugby. I've never watched all that much of it. Meanwhile, in soccer, not a whole lot going on today. I haven't seen, what was the final score of the U.S. men's game?
3-0, they lost to France.
Yeah, the U.S. didn't send any of its good players. I don't really understand it, but that's above my pay grade.
So men's soccer in the Olympics is U23.
Yes.
With the exception of 3 roster slots. You can send 3 overage players to the Olympics to represent your country, but the rest of the team has to be U23. France has some better overage players they can send, and also substantially better underage players they can send.
Like, if I'm the U.S., I would think I'd want to send my 3 best older players that I possibly could. Like,
It's just,
this is a chance to make people feel good about your sport again, or your team again, your program.
but that's not how anyone views Olympic soccer.
No, I know.
It's viewed as more of a developmental opportunity.
Which is why, because most sports, it's the big deal.
Yes.
But so be it. The biggest news from men's soccer today: Morocco defeats Argentina in the first game of the day 2-1. It appeared late in stoppage time, like it was going to be 2-2, following a goal by Argentina's Christian Medina deep in extra time. However, VAR overturned that goal after a 2-hour delay. 2 hours to overturn it. The NFL used to do 60 seconds.
There were some fans out on the pitch, and then an hour later is when they announced the match wasn't actually over. There was nobody else in the stadium.
No.
They said, hey, by the way, match isn't over.
Got to bring them all back out. Like the Fail Mary play when they made them come out for the extra point afterward. That's what this feels like.
I can't believe they had an hour to look at it, and then they decided, nah, no goal.
Nope. Come on. We got more to do. So those are your big headlines from a light first day of Olympic action. But do not worry, because the real Olympics start tomorrow, 2 a.m. Slovenia versus Denmark women's handball pool play begins. I can't wait. Archery also begins tomorrow.
Is that right?
It is. Plus more rugby and more soccer.
Yeah, I'm only seeing rugby and soccer on the ESPN schedule. I got to find a better schedule page. Anyhow, that'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. When we come back, who's the Chiefs' real rival? We know who thinks they are. We'll talk about that next from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on 580 Sports Talk. 8:37 on 580 Sports Talk. Man, good band. I should go back and listen to more Incubus. Yeah, I saw them live at Red Rocks back in the day.
I did know that.
Yeah, I'm sure I've told you that. I'm sure that's come up.
We've worked together long enough. I think there's a lot of those stories.
Not a whole lot. Yeah, not a whole lot of secrets at this point. We worked together 8 years. I don't think there's not much that we haven't mentioned in passing at the very least. But yeah, I also don't go to a lot of concerts. I haven't been to a lot of concerts. So the ones I have been to, I probably mentioned.
Haven't you not been to one in 14 years now?
Last one I went to that I paid for a ticket to go to was Queens of the Stone Age in Omaha in 2010.
Yeah, 14 years.
Yeah, it'll be 14 years. Just if I'm going to go see something live, it's going to be a sporting event. Like if I'm going to pay for a ticket to something, it's going to be that.
That's fair.
It's not anti-live music. Just that's my entertainment budget. Ball games. To each their own, to on their each. This very funny clip went viral earlier today. The NFL's doing their top 100 players of 2024 on the NFL Network. And one of the talking heads on this year's show, a player who agreed to be sat down and be interviewed, is Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver Ja'Marr Chase. And this clip went viral today. This is him being asked, who's the number one player on the top 100 list? Listen to what he says. That was Ja'Marr Chase.
I have so much respect for him being like, nah, I ain't doing it. I know there is a certain portion of the Chiefs fan base, I think Chiefs fans, you'd be willing to admit this, that take small slights and turn them into like personality traits and get very fired up about certain things. I think this is hilarious. I think the Bengals and Ja'Marr Chase specifically have done some things over the last 3 years that I can understand why they would have you be very mad as a Chiefs fan. I just think this is hilarious. This is like the ultimate respect. This dude has made me so mad and has frustrated me so much I can't even say his name. Like, if I'm the Chiefs, I'm taking that as huge respect.
And the look on his face, too, it wasn't like anger or disgust. It was just like, you know that look when you're beaten and you know you're beaten and all you can do when you're just charging it to the game.
Yeah.
He had charge it to the game face. Like, yeah, man, I know who it is and I know what you want me to say and I know who it's going to be and I know he's beaten us. I just don't want to say his name. Don't make me admit out loud that he's the best.
It's like when your friend makes a joke about you and it's so good, like you don't have a comeback. You're just like, yeah, you got me.
Yeah.
You just have to take it. You have to take it. You're
That's
like, yep,
very true.
Yep.
So I saw this clip earlier today and hilarious. We've had the conversation before about who the Chiefs' premier rival is right now. Is it still like actively the Bengals? Because I think you can have a major rival who isn't like your historic rival. I'll give you an example. KU basketball. The rivals are Missouri and Kansas State.
Yes.
But like KU versus Texas for a few years there was an unbelievable basketball rivalry.
You can have rivalries that are generational, and then you can have rivalries that sort of define where your organization, like they're a chapter in the story.
Yes. Seahawks 49ers, which they're still not like buddy, but there was a period where that was heated.
Yes.
Big time.
The Harbaugh Carroll years, that was as good a rivalry as there was in the NFL.
So I think the Bengals have been a legit, because the rest of the division stinks. They're not it. The Bills have never beaten the Chiefs in a meaningful game in this era.
No.
Not a single meaningful game. They played the 49ers in 2 Super Bowls. They beat them twice.
Yeah, and the regular season meeting, Mahomes went to San Francisco and put 44 in their heads.
And frankly, in both, Andy Reid outclassed Kyle Shanahan pretty decisively.
Right. It can't be a rivalry if the other side doesn't win. That's why right now it doesn't feel like there's a divisional rival for the Chiefs, because those other teams aren't beating the Chiefs.
And even so the Bengals have been the obvious pick here because, well, I mean, They have beaten. They beat the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl. They're the only team other than the Patriots, a very different Patriots franchise at the time, who have done that. But it also only happened once. They've won regular season games too, which is, that's something. So have the Bills. The Bills haven't gotten to the mountaintop. The Bengals at least got close. But that's now 3 years ago that game happened.
But they still hold it over your head. That's all.
Because it's all they've got.
That's what I'm saying. That's like, okay, yeah, we're 3-1 against Mahomes. Joe Burrow's 3-1 against Mahomes, but like, what has he done other than that? He beat Patrick Mahomes. What did he do in the Super Bowl?
So that's kind of my point. Like the Patriots dynasties for a lot of it, you had the foil. You had Peyton Manning and the Colts, but really Peyton Manning. You had that sort of rivalry that even though the Patriots got the upper hand more often, there was always someone else who would give them an even heated battle. Like the Bengals are probably still the closest thing to that, but there isn't a foil for the Chiefs right now. They've beaten the Niners twice. They took the best shot from the Eagles. That was actually very respectful Super Bowl, which is funny considering Eagles fans. Except for the holding call thing. Like they've mostly beaten the Bengals. They've always beaten the Bills when it matters most.
The shared Andy Reid experience, I think, makes Chiefs and Eagles have a kinship almost. I think you're right. I think that because there hasn't been any competition in the AFC West, a texter from the 316 Tough Emails Play text line does point out correctly that the Broncos are on a 1-game winning streak against the Chiefs. So are the Raiders. That bears mentioning too. The Chiefs and the Raiders and the Broncos both have wins in their most recent meetings against the Chiefs. I think before that, the previous Bronco win over the Chiefs occurred in the Barack Obama administration.
Multiple presidents.
Yes, when you have to go multiple presidents back.
That was Jamal Charles fumbling on Thursday Night Football to end the game, where I don't remember, like Aqib Talib picked up and scooped and scored. 10-year-old Trenton was in a rage.
Man,
was it Talib? I don't think it was Bradley Roby.
Okay, I knew it was a defensive back.
Remember when Jim Nantz absolutely massacred Jamal Charles on the sideline after that fumble?
I do.
He spiked his helmet but held the face mask and went, well, he held on to something. It was either Nantz or Sims. It was one just roasting the poor dude.
But because of the one-sided nature of the divisional rivals, I'm like, those are always going to mean something. Those are like those rivalries are on ice. Like as soon as whoever, the Raiders or the Broncos, get good again, those games are going to have the sizzle because you have the history of that rivalry.
Well, and those mean more when those rivalries mean more when the games mean more. If there is divisional supremacy on the line, that makes those rivalries that much more heated. That's why those are so passionate everywhere. You don't have that. I just feel like from a drama standpoint, you almost need the Bengals to get the one up again. And Chiefs fans, you obviously don't want that, but to have an actual natural foil as opposed to just football is a game with high drama and intensity and personalities and schemes, and then the Chiefs win. That's not what the rest of the league is hoping for.
Right. Now, it's still the games against the Bengals right now are the ones with the most juice.
Yes,
because of that AFC Championship game, that outcome, because Burrow has taken Mahomes' measure more than once. And I know that's there's obviously more to it than just the quarterback matchup, but that's how we break things down, right? That's how we distill the matchup a little bit. So those are the games with the most sizzle. There's no question about it. But again, it's hard to, if you're the Bengals, how do you measure up to 3 Super Bowls? You don't. You don't have any. If the Bengals go out and beat the Chiefs in a meaningful game and go get a Super Bowl, then we'll look back on it and we'll think, oh yeah, this was a defining rivalry of this era of Chiefs football. But that's the thing about winning 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, winning back-to-back Super Bowls. You don't really have a foil because nobody's getting over on you in the big games.
Yeah.
And that's just, that's what it is to be king. That's what it is to be the man. And nobody's been able to knock them off their perch. And remains to be seen if they'll be able to do it this year. We'll take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, a little more Royals talk as they get set for Game 3 of their series tonight, the rubber game against the D-backs. Coming up from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on 580 Sports Talk. We got overtime coming up after this edition of 580 Sports Talk. We'll hear from Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com. 6:30, we'll hand things off to the Royals Baseball Network ahead of a 7:10 first pitch at Kauffman Stadium tonight. The Royals and the Diamondbacks. Rubber game of a 3-game set. Royals won the opener 10-4. Diamondbacks struck back last night with a 6-2 victory. Tonight, pair of right-handers on the mound. It'll be Michael Wacha for the Royals. He was outstanding in his first start out of the break. 7 shutout innings on Friday against the White Sox. Ryan Nelson takes the ball for the Diamondbacks. He's 7-6 on the year with a 4.78 ERA, though he also had a very good start in his first one out of the break. 5 2/3 innings, 1 run on 3 hits, and 9 strikeouts against the Cubs. Royals lineup tonight does not feature Garrett Hampson leading off, but it does feature Adam Frazier leading off.
Boo!
Adam Frazier's going to lead off in left field. Whit Pasquantino Perez behind him. Massey at second base back in the lineup. Freddie Fermin DHing tonight. And Drew Waters in right field. Michael Garcia at third, and Kyle Isbell in center. Arizona will have their lefties in the lineup against the right-hander Wacha. Corbin Carroll leading off. Ketel Marte with home runs in both games of this series, batting second. Jock Peterson, the DH. Christian Walker at first. Jake McCarthy in left field. Eugenio Suarez at third. Alec Thomas in center. Gerardo Perdomo at short. And their backup catcher, Jose Herrera, getting his first start of the series, batting ninth.
A Diamondback is classified as a pit viper, like the actual snakes.
Uh-huh.
They are also solitary, except during mating season, when males of the species are single-minded in their pursuit of females. Wow, them and 18-year-old me, one and the same. They also hibernate in the winter.
I'd love to be able to hibernate in the winter sometimes.
Let's see. Their natural predators include roadrunners. Roadrunners seem kind of small to catch a Diamondback, which are like 4.5 feet long.
Both teams playing good ball right now.
Sold me like freaking Bill Goldberg over here.
I don't have a lot of follow-up to snake facts, man. I'm not... Where are their arms and legs?
Sandbagging me.
Diamondbacks have won 17 of their last 24. They're in a good stretch right now.
Yeah.
They're doing the thing that they always do when they play well, and Lord knows I've seen it as a fan of another NL West team over the years, where they're just super tough to get out, and they make a bunch of contacts, kind of royally in a way, when they're going good. Like they don't have they have some power, but it's not like that's not the driver of their offense. What makes them go is contact and aggressive base running, and we saw that from them on display last night in their win. And Michael Wacha's got to keep traffic off the bases. That's going to be the big key for him tonight. He's got to make sure he limits those run-scoring opportunities, puts those threats down. Maybe it's a different game last night if Alec Marsh is able to escape the first inning with only 1 run allowed instead of giving up that 2-run single with 2 outs to make it a 3-0 game before the Royals ever swing the bats. A cleaner first inning and less traffic for Wacha will be the hope tonight. Ryan Nelson, certainly gettable. This is a game that if you're the Royals, you take this one, you're 5-1 on the homestand with 3 games to go, and we'd put 6 wins as the benchmark for a successful homestand.
That's right.
You'd be almost all the way there with 1 series still left to play. Again, 7:10 first pitch, 6:30 pregame on the Royals Baseball Network. We'll take one more break. We'll come back with a final word. Maybe it will be more snake facts. We don't know. That's coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. Time for the final word on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, go ahead and lead us off.
All right. First, two-parter for me here. Number one, the thing that poisons you when a Western rattlesnake or a Western diamondback rattlesnake bites you is a proteolytic enzyme. It destroys your structural tissue.
Typically, the thing that poisons you when an Arizona Diamondback strikes is Ketel Marte.
Yeah, normally so. Final word for me today about the Royals at the deadline. And I know we've been talking deadline for quite a while on the show now because it's been a more exciting deadline than we've had since when? Last year was exciting because, what are we going to get when we dump Aroldis Chapman?
You don't remember getting psyched for the Trevor Cahill, Brandon Maurer, and Ryan Buchter haul they got from the Padres in 2017?
That's one of the first things I remember covering working here at the radio station. No, I'm excited to do it. You're probably only going to get one shot, though, to make a big move because of your limited farm system. So go make it count. Whatever that looks like, take a big swing. Haven't been in the playoffs in a long time. Take a big swing to make sure you get there this year.
Final word for me today. The bottom of the roster is really fascinating when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know what direction they're going to go, how many wide receivers they carry, if in fact they carry a player who is a special teams only, a return specialist on the roster. But enough interesting things are happening at the bottom half of that roster with guys like Deneric Prince and Louis Rees-Zammit and Nico Remigio, who was a star today in camp, that those are the roster spots that are really, really compelling. And you've got guys who are really, really desperate to make this roster in particular because this is a champions roster, and the level of competition is already high at Chiefs training camp. That'll do it for 580 Sports Talk today. We got some overtime coming up until 6:30 in Royals baseball. We'll be back with you tomorrow from 2 until 6. For Trenton Kraxner and Brendan Dworzynski, I'm Dan Lucero from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. This has been 580 Sports Talk. See ya.